allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge to do my best by being responsible, respectful, and safe. I will look for ways to grow and improve. My life makes a difference at Ammerman Elementary School.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will do our best tonight to live up to the Ammerman pledge that we just all committed to. Welcome again to our meeting tonight. We are very excited. We have a big night tonight. We have a couple of things on our agenda. First, we'll be hearing at some point soon from Michigan Medicine about an arrangement that we are exploring to put a health center potentially here within our district. But first, in the other big order for tonight, we'll be hearing from our Ammerman Bobcat leaders in their presentation. But we do have a number of orders of business to get through first, and I will hand it over to Dr. Campbell-Voitel for our roll call, please.
Thank you. All right. President Lindsay Wilson.
I'm here.
Vice President Sarah Prescott. Hi, everyone here. Treasurer Lisa McIntyre. Here. Trustee James Mazurek.
Here.
Trustee Karen Meyer.
Here.
Trustee Melissa Stewart. Here. And I am here, Kimberly Campbell-Voitel, Secretary.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful Pledge of Allegiance and for the Ammerman Pride Pledge. Just a couple of points before we get into things. I did want to give a couple of thank yous. We won't have time to go into it tonight, but I thought there were a number of successes and highlights in this week's Friday update that would otherwise be worth noting. Also some sad notes about some things that happened at Cook School. I just wanted to at least recognize that. I also wanted to note that Thursday night, we've all been invited to Township Hall to recognize one of our former colleagues, Roland Wong, who has been given the Lifetime Humanitarian Award by the governor, I believe. So we'll be recognizing him. I'd encourage whoever can make that to go to Township Hall on Thursday night. I think it's 7 o'clock. So that brings us to the adoption of our agenda, and I'll hand it over to Ms. Prescott, please.
Hi, everyone. It's motion number 50, and I would just move that the board adopt the agenda as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Ms. McIntyre. Do we need any discussion of our agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion passes. Thank you. That will be our agenda for the night. Ms. Prescott, our consent resolutions, please.
This is motion 51. I would move that the board accept the consent agenda items for approval as presented. A, the minutes of the December 5th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. B, the minutes of the December 5th, 2023 closed session meeting of the Board of Education. 5C, overnight and or out-of-state field trip requests. The first one, Meads Mill Science Olympiad Tournament in Sylvania, Ohio, December 9th, 2023. And our second one, NHS cheer trip to Midland, Michigan from January 5th to the 6th, 2024. C3, NHS Alpine Ski Team Invitational in Boyne Falls, Michigan from January 11th to the 12th, 2024. On 5D, thinking about doing a special call meeting on January 9th, 2024. That'd be at 6:30 at the Old Village School. And 5E is bill warrants, $2,658,053.52.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented again by Ms. Prescott and supported by Dr. Campbell-Voitel. Before we get into any discussion, just so folks in the audience know what these are consent resolutions. These are items, as you heard the list, that we've either talked about in previous meetings or we've had information previous to our meeting tonight that we've had time to digest and review, like our minutes and things like that. Any discussion on any of these items?
I just wanted to ask if the idea on the January 9th was if we had an agenda to fill out for that. It was, as discussed last week, as a possibility for a placeholder for items that we may want to discuss more. Is that the idea for it?
My understanding is the January 9th special call meeting would be on the subject to include the Michigan Medicine.
Correct.
Proposal.
Okay, great. I mean, I of course support it, but I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Any other questions? I had a chance to look at the minutes and they look good to me. Look good to everybody else?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of adopting our consent resolutions?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you so much. That brings us to our communications. Dr. Campbell-Voitel, please.
Yes. We have had two communications, one through MPSBOE at northvilleschools.org, and the second is the Northville Youth Network Program Report for November 2023.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions about those communications?
No, only one comment, and I hope it's a passing thing. It was kind of interesting. I saw there's a line item there for racial and cultural insensitivity. It spikes in October, right? I don't know if that's conceptually lines up with some of the things that are going on in the Middle East, where there's been a lot of some insensitivities all around, or not. It seems like it has disappeared, but maybe it's something we can kind of understand later on. I don't know that I want to take time today to get into that one. I made that comment. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Well noted. All right, well, that brings us to the highlight of the evening, I think, our Ammerman presentation. And I will hand it over to Ms. Caudell, our leader here.
Ready? 3, 2. Willkommen
أهلا وسهلا.
Juanin
Welcome
to the December 2023 Ammerman School Board meeting. We are so excited to have you here tonight and guide you through some things that make Ammerman an amazing school to be at. Our theme this year is Around the World in 180 Days. It is a year of adventure, understanding, and kindness.
There are 3 breakout rooms for you to go to. You will be learning about how we build community in our classrooms, how student leaders make our daily announcements, and how we use our leadership binders.
As you've entered Ammerman, you should have gotten a sticker. If you did not receive a sticker, please make your way to the stage.
Now that you've identified it, now that you all have your sticker, you will notice your sticker either says Aspire, Achieve, or Amaze.
Now that you have identified your sticker, please wait for your ushers to call over your group.
Your ushers will now take you through a journey around the school to where teachers and students will show you what's different and amazing about Ammerman.
Please be respectful to your student ushers as they are all trying to guide you through this board meeting.
We'll try.
Follow my leader, Adam, please, and he will take you to your first breakout session. And then I have Will, who has Achieve. Follow my friend Will here.
So I'm going to go with the first group.
Last but not least, okay, the lovely Clara will guide our amazing group. Please follow Clara and Juliet. You're amazing.
We hope you enjoyed your breakout sessions and learning about what makes We hope you enjoyed your breakout sessions and learning about what makes Ammerman a fun and amazing place to learn.
Mrs. Scotto, would you like to say anything at this time?
Oh, thank you. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, parents, for sharing your amazing students with us this evening. Thank you to our teachers that helped our students in this process to show and highlight just a few things that we do here at Ammerman every single day. I always say after different events, like, oh, this is my favorite night of the year. And I said that about our culture night. And then I'm here, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite night of the year. So, because I forget about all these amazing things. So a really quick thank you, just to highlight all of you being here just really makes my heart happy that you shared your light with us and allowed us to help them shine. So thank you so much. So I will turn that over if anybody has any questions.
Questions, comments, board members? Anyone?
So I'll go first. And I don't have any questions, but I had some comments that I thought was really interesting. And so one, I was in the room, we were talking about morning announcements. And I really like the creativity. I mean, it's kind of incredible to think that you've got third and fourth graders, maybe some second graders involved, who are doing the morning announcements. They have their video camera, and it's really student-led. They capture the videos, and they do video editing and creating this stuff, right? They're highly creative, highly enthusiastic, and I just look at where I was in third grade. Heck, creating videos. I was probably 20 years into working and struggling in how to go do that. And you have third graders who are so familiar with the technology and comfortable to be able to do this. So one, I really want to applaud you guys. That's really so awesome to be able to see that. The second thing I wanted to comment on was in Mrs. Williams' Willer's room, right? And we did a little circle and we talked about what was their favorite classes, right? So we had 10 kids, and they ended up just off the top of their head talking about 5 subjects they liked: reading, writing, art, science, and math, right? And they each kind of said their own thing. The interesting thing to me was the top subjects that liked, 3 of the kids really liked reading because they liked how they could learn about others. And 2 kids, which surprised me, thought math was the coolest thing, right? And there was a couple for writing, a couple for art and science, but it's just really interesting to see how at 2 years old or second grade, how kids really have different focuses already and how, what kind of drives them, right? And so, again, I'm not going to tell you my age, but you guys are significantly farther down the path than I was at second grade. I'll just leave it at that. So I want to compliment you guys for doing such a great job. I learned a lot from you, and that's really important. And one of the things I think it shows us is we're never too old to learn. You're always learning, and remember that. There's always something you can learn new.
I patted you on the shoulder because you're the math guy. So I'm sure you were happy with that.
I was happy about that.
I was going to comment on the sharing circle too. I was wondering if it was a wonderful thing to observe. There was a lot of positive, confident sharing and affirmation. So kind of, patting, just like I just patted you on the shoulder, Jim. There was some patting of the shoulder of your neighbor when they made a contribution, and you wanted to encourage them. So it was really a positive experience. But so for those of you who are sitting here, maybe you could share your one thing that you really like or about your sharing circle time, something that you like a lot about sharing circles. Think of anything?
What I like about circles is that when you have a question and it gets answered by someone else, you can learn something that you didn't know about someone else, and it can teach you many different things.
I agree with Brooklyn, and I would like to add on that like circles can teach you a whole bunch of a lot and about other people and what they like and how they like it.
I like circles because you can learn things you didn't know about other people, and it could be really interesting to see if you like the same thing as other people.
I like sharing circles because, like, if you said something that you really like and then another person didn't know that you like that, then it's kind of like a connection, kind of. What I like about circles is that when we go down to the carpet to talk about stuff, if there's one question and then you answer it and then somebody else does and you never thought about it that way, it's fun to look at and discover other people's point of views of stuff.
I like circles because when you get together, you might find out something that you like the things that other people like too.
One and then two. Okay.
I like restorative circles because I like circles because everyone is more heard in circles than if you're just like all over the room. So if you're all over the room, it's really hard to hear people. And if you're in a circle, you're not distracted by like a drawing or something because you're all looking at everyone. You can look at and you can see everyone. And it's good because you can see everyone and make eye contact so they feel heard. I like restorative circles because it's really calm and I think it's also nice to have restorative circles because when everybody shares, you can like connect with like what they say, like with what you have in common with them in your life.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Do you mind if I?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone, hi. Thank you so much, Bob Katz. I have had kids in this school since 2017, and I've been on the board for a few years earlier than that. And a couple of things I just want to note. One is this is a very special building leader that we have here. I've gotten to know her as a parent and as a board member, and I've really valued her willingness to talk on a individual level. She's there for parents, and that's really wonderful. This building is home to some of the best teachers. I mean, they amaze me, and they know who they are. And I've been very lucky and blessed to have kids in this school. This home is also school to an incredibly rich parent team. And maybe that's part of the magic. It seems like it probably is. I don't know. I just don't know how they do it. The parents over and over again, the culture night and the trunk or treat and everything in between, the Bobcat Bash. Don't even get me started. So just an incredibly special parent team. It's been a joy over the time that my kids have been here, but even before that, and maybe even especially before that, to see the cultural evolution at Ammerman. I think the community and the culture have grown, and I think we see that with the morning announcements as an example of students being supported by just some really, really special teachers. I really appreciated Bob Katz, the presentation on the leadership notebooks. It is not easy to talk to adults you do not know when you are in third grade and speak to them and go through an organized presentation. And what I saw there was really, really impressive. So thank you for that. You're special kiddos who can do that. And then also I'll just comment quickly on the circles of connection. On the school board, we've done some connecting, kind of like what we saw tonight. And I learned great things. Mr. Mazurk's family moved here. His parents moved here from another country. I wouldn't have known that if we didn't talk at that level. Or Mr. Boffman in the purple and our president, Mr. Wilson, they bonded over, or I at least thought it was tickled that they both love breakdancing and breakdancing movies, something like this, drum major movie. Anyway, we've bonded over things that you wouldn't know, just like your last answer said. And it's easier to be kind to someone when you think you have a connection to them you may not have otherwise known. And it's harder to be maybe you're not as best self when you think, hey, that person and I both love breakdancing. That's something that we think is great. So I really encourage you to keep that up, because I think that cultural piece, it's hard to measure. You can't put it on a standardized test. You guys do wonderful on your standardized tests, but what the reason we come here is to help educate ourselves about your culture. So I really want to congratulate you for what you've built here as a community.
Anyone else? Lisa, yeah.
Yeah, my kids also went to Ammerman for a couple of years, and I can really see the way that the culture has been built here, and through the connection circles, through all of the opportunities, through PTA. It's really a pleasure to see how much the community has really invested in getting to know each other. I think one of the things that stood out to me a couple of years ago was the movie Chasing Childhood, where we talked about Northville's a small town. So how do we treat it like a small town? And it seems like that's really happening here at Ammerman, to hear the circles of connection, to just even get to experience that together, right? We're investing a lot in this goal to help kids learn how to connect with each other. And it's so simple, sharing your favorite color or even sharing your favorite activity at home. That was really fun to hear a couple girls learn that they each like sewing, and that was something that just happened organically. And what a great way to build community and connections and celebrate each other and strengths and differences. I also really liked learning about the grow and the glow. And we were the first group to go through the leadership notebook. And the two girls that we met with, the one girl was like, I've never even presented to the school board, so I'm kind of scared. And I really appreciated that vulnerability. And she still shared her grows and her glows with us. And so I just really appreciate that vulnerability and the willingness to teach us a little bit about what's happening here at Ammerman. So thank you.
So I was wondering about the daily announcements. Can I see hands in the air if you are part of the team that works on those daily announcements? Awesome. And so my question then is, how do you get to be on that team? Because it looks like so much fun. We'll let the principal choose, huh? Go ahead.
Well, it's not really something you necessarily need to do, but I remember one of the first weeks of third grade, and there was a thing on the announcements that was just like, you want to come help make the school a better place, come outside for recess, and we'll have like a circle and kind of get to share our goals and what we want this year. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. But it kind of just grew to this thing where you can like really bond with friends, make videos for the morning announcements. It's an amazing experience. And I think it's totally worth it if you miss like some of your recess or some of your lunch. And I feel like I just love it. I would do it every day if I could, but sometimes you have to go out for recess, and it's amazing.
So when I was in third grade, I also saw something on the announcements, and it was like, come or apply for Lighthouse, and I did, and it was really nice because we also had an interview, and it was really great real world experience that I think benefits a lot of kids. And for the morning announcements, I did them last year, but it was just great to make videos and then edit them, and then that's also experience that you might need in some sort of career. So I really enjoyed that.
So is it the Lighthouse team that it's different? Okay.
Okay, so first I saw it in the announcements and I was like, "Oh, I'm pretty good with tech. I think I would like that." And when so we went to like the makerspace or something, and we were like in a circle and we would share like some ideas we would have for this. And I figured out that it was so much more than just like using tech and making these videos for the announcements. It was like you're organizing these fun events and making Emmerman like a really good place to learn at, and it was, and like you're giving out like information for like the culture interviews and things like that, and that's really fun.
So our announcement team is, if you want to do announcements, show up at lunch. That's it. There's no, so we do have our main Lighthouse team, but we also have things called the Bobcat Boost teams. And each of the Bobcat Boosts might do something. And it could be like our Toys for Tots team could be making a video on their Toys for Tots drive. By the way, that was their idea. Let's do a Toys for Tots drive. So really, if you think we need a video on something, you let us know and we hand you an iPad and you make a video on something.
You guys?
Excellent. Karen, anybody else?
Yeah. I just want to echo everything that I've heard my fellow board members say here tonight. It was a wonderful experience, and this is a great school. My children also attended, and I like to see the evolution of things that are happening here. One thing that has not changed is a squeak in the NPR. So maybe with that bond money, we can get that fixed. When I reflected on what I saw tonight, how I kind of broke it down in my head was that I saw the leadership binder about like ownership of yourself and ownership of your own learning. And then the restorative circle, kind of like ownership in your classmates, getting to know your class and your classroom culture. And then the announcements as ownership in the school. So I love to see how involved in every level the students are in what is happening here. My question though, when I was got the presentation about the binder, was it, every month you're setting a goal for yourself. And I'm wondering that, and so a lot of these goals were, frankly, you put yourself up to some big tasks. And so I'm wondering if, and a question I didn't get a chance to ask or didn't think to ask when I was listening was, when you have a goal, like say you're going to read for 30 minutes a night or run for 10 minutes, do you go home and you go, oh, I don't want to do it, but I know tomorrow if I don't, I'm going to have to color that square in red. Do you find that having that goal motivates you to follow through when you get home and you've had a long day at school?
Do 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1.
So when we set our goals, we really want to think about by the end of the month, we want to have more greens than reds. So you don't want to do a task that's like super big and you don't think that you can achieve it, but you want to do a task that you think that after school you're going to go home and maybe do it, or maybe at night if you're reading, you'll do it at night, and you just want a goal that you think that you're attached to and that you really want to follow through. What I think about goals is that I think about something I know I can achieve or not achieve, and then if I achieve it, I feel good about myself, and then I write a reflection about how do I think I did or how I don't think I did. I set a math goal because I always felt like in math I was always behind in math, and it's never been one of my favorite subjects. But I always felt like I needed to do better in it. So I think it's important that we set these goals, because no one wants to have to cross out their square or color it red, saying oh, I didn't do this. So I think it is important that we also have these math goals, because if we didn't set them, we probably wouldn't push ourselves to do them.
That was great. I really appreciate the in-depth reflection. That's wonderful. Those are lifelong skills. And I just really quickly want to say about the restorative circles. I know that that has been a goal here in the district, and I really appreciate any opportunity we get to see it in action. And I just want to thank Dr. Weber and the team for making sure that that was a main motivator and driver at the school year. I'm wondering about maybe hopefully we could see this at the secondary level as well, see it in action, just because I see how great these students at this level do.
So, Mr. Bothman, I think that is you on cue because you've run a couple of those at the secondary level, right? So, Mr. Bothman works with our principals very closely and actually very organically at Hillside and the high school, just picked random kids and went into circles and did that. So we can certainly incorporate that in later building visits as you kind of see the progression. But really, kind of my cue to say this, I had the good fortune to teach in Miss Willer's room last year. Where are you, Miss Willer? Did you go? There you are. There's your hand. And I'm going to say I've done this for a year or two, maybe 32. And the culture of a classroom is really easy to feel. It's like any space, any group of people you're ever with. You can tell about the health of a culture of an organization or a space by how people treat each other. And when I was in her room last year, it was just stunning. And this year, what really brought me joy was when you hear a veteran teacher like Miss Willer, who is absolutely tops when it comes to creating a loving, caring culture, say, the thing about the circle and the idea, and it may seem simple, is that kids can see each other. Human beings can see each other. They can read body language. They can read eyes and excitement. And when you talk about building an understanding of each other and an understanding of people, knowing what you have in common shows you how little we are apart. In a world that sometimes feels like many of us are very, very far apart, I would offer anybody to sit down, have a cup of coffee with somebody, get in a circle with some kids or some people, and just actually stay curious about what other people are saying. And that's our goal here. And from an end standpoint, Ammerman, can you stand up a second? All the kids on the stage. I just want to get a good look at all of you. Some of you are hiding and I can't see, and I just want to look you all in the eyes. Thank you. I can see them all now. They have steps behind you, bud. You're a kind kid. But thank you. Sincerely, thank you for what you put into tonight. But really, the circle piece of it, Ms. Morris, thank you, and the data notebook aspect of it, having the kids own their own learning, what that ever may be. Awesome.
Just, yeah. I'll back clean up for the board with just a few points. So I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us for the really warm welcome. I know when I walked in, there were 3 or 4 of you sitting outside at the front door with stickers and big smiles and a lot of energy, and I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank all of you for your preparation. It's obvious to us that you all put a lot of preparation into the words that you said, getting ready for your restorative circle, for your videos. A lot of work went into that, and so we applaud you for that. This is really a special place for me as well. I mean, like so many of us, my kids came through the Ammerman school here, and I literally had chills in the library standing there. That was where I dropped off my kids in the morning for Kids Club, picked them up at the end of the day at PM Kids Club, and literally just standing there, it brought me back to whatever it was 5-6 years ago when I last stood there picking them up. I love the way you are all tracking goals and grows and doing something that I think is really hard for even adults to do, a self-assessment, to look at yourself and to think about what you are doing well and what you could, grow in and do better at. We as a board just went through that process maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I think we've grown because of that. Doing that kind of self-assessment is super hard, but it's super, super useful. Those are your personal goals, but you have some really great big collective goals. I think I saw in one of the rooms, you're collecting 100 toys for Tots. That's a big number. I'm curious to know if where you are on that, if you've met that goal or if you think you're going to meet it. this building also happens to be one of the places where one of my favorite pieces of art are in the district, right outside the lighthouse coastal scene that's made out of, recycled bottle caps and caps is just an awesome piece. The last thing I want to talk on is the restorative circles, right? Miss Willer's class, you saw it. It's so encouraging for me to see how community building, something that we just launched within the last 3-4 months, whatever it's been, how you've taken it and embodied it in your class in a way that really speaks volumes to us. So that was really awesome. So I just want to say thank you for all that, and thank you for the warm welcome, and great job, Bobcats. Anything else? Yeah, great job. Any other questions?
Now we invite every parent and student and principal and Colt member to come stand behind the board table, please, for a group picture. Thank you.
Picture time.
Abdul, I mean you.
Better have a flash.
You guys can go all the way around, okay?
Okay, so
We're gonna fill in all the
Yeah, come on up.
Good job, guys.
Come on in. Get close. Come on in. Come on in. Scooch in the spots over here too.
right here, fill this whole space.
Memories.
Your face in between.
Yep.
Awesome.
Fill in over here.
Perfect place for my children.
William is.
Scoot all the way up.
Big smiles. Let's see big smiles.
Remember, if you can't see the camera can't.
He's right there.
I up here.
I'm sorry.
Smile really big right there, guys.
Smile right there, up there.
Big smiles.
We'll do one more, and on 3, we're going to yell Bobcat.
Ooh.
Ready? 1.
Ready?
Ready? 2, 3.
Good job, guys.
My butt is.
Thank you.
Good job, everyone.
I know.
I heard. I got
Listen, Mom, what are you doing?
You can take each one as a thank you for all you
No, just how you guys used it naturally, organically. Well, even like the staff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So where did your kids go?
Thornton Creek.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, we were Thornton
Is
Creek.
that right? Yeah. Awesome. Your day is
It's a
Monday.
lot of airmen up in here. Although I saw
Yeah.
a little girl who was at Marine and is now obviously at House.
Yeah. No, we had a situation like personality, right? There was
Yeah, I think it is a
There's more meetings.
Right. Personality.
So
Because it's a lot, it seems like it's a lot of independent projects.
she's not independent. She did Thornton Creek
Yeah.
and then Hillside and
Yeah.
high school.
And I think we moved here. My didn't realize which one I was writing on.
All right, back to it. All right, that brings us to number 8 on our agenda. Superintendent report, Dr. Weber.
Yes. And one of my very favorite pieces, frankly, here, saw this the very first time when I was at Moraine about a year and a half ago, are the ABCD Awards. So without further ado.
You know, I get to do the first one. I always am excited to do these, and we have such wonderful teachers and staff at this district. I cannot state that enough, because I don't want to say that this person deserves the biggest accolades possible. I don't know if Carrie Morfino is here. She's not here. Okay, well, nevertheless, it's long past the due time that she's been recognized. Throughout the COVID crisis, Carrie and her food services team faced several operational challenges, including a severe staffing shortage and incidental supply chain interruptions. When lunch meals were free to all students in 21-22, despite having several open positions, Carrie and the food services team served twice as many meals as had been served previously. Then, heading into this school year, the legislature approved the Michigan Meals Program, which made free breakfast and lunch meals to all students. Carrie readily accepted the challenge of organizing the implementation of this program, including the hiring and training of approximately 20 new staff members. Through Carrie's leadership and the efforts of dedicated food service staff, 120,946 meals were served during the month of October.
Wow.
Which translates to about 1 million meals to be served this school year.
Wow.
Now, you know, it takes so much dedication. One curveball after another has been thrown at her. We are so fortunate in this district to have her and the whole food services team. If we think about what they have been asked to do in the past 3 to 4 years, as many of you may know, I work I volunteer as the federal legislative chair for the Michigan PTA. And one thing the Michigan PTA often advocates on is meals for students. And I called her when I was going to go talk to our legislators to ask her, you know, what's going on in Northville, because they like to hear local stories. And she was in between going to different schools. So she's running the department, making sure everyone is fed, and she's working herself. I don't, if that isn't the dedication that makes this district run well, I don't know what is. So I am so privileged to be able to present her with the ABCD Award.
Well, I am next, and I leapt at the opportunity to, and it is my honor actually to recognize Miss Elizabeth Lamana, a learning consultant here at this school. So this nomination came from a student, and our students are our biggest and most important people. So Mrs. Lamana is always helping us to be better. Whether it's on the Lighthouse team or not, she's always helping everyone with all kinds of things. When I was on the Lighthouse team, Mrs. Lamana always helped me and everyone else to create and imagine our projects. That's opening doors for kids. The student goes on to say she always goes above and beyond to help us have our project be a success, and then also to help us finish. So it's really an arc, isn't it? It's imagining, it's sparking that imagination, it's coming up with a project that captures that imagination, and then bringing it to a finish that they can be proud of. That's a beautiful, beautiful contribution. So being on the Lighthouse team with Mrs. Lamana in charge has really helped me grow in my leadership skills, but also, the student says, in my listening skills. Boy, isn't that a talent and a skill that we all will need throughout life to be effective people. So, and that, all of these things are why Mrs. Lamana should get the ABCD Award. So.
Yay.
Ready? I get the honor to give an award to Miss Willerer, who we got the pleasure to enjoy the community circles tonight. And this award was given to her by a colleague. Mrs. Willerer has a love for all of her students that goes way above and beyond just ensuring that they are progressing academically, as she cares about each and every one of them as a whole child. She always has. Mrs. Willerer cares about their emotional well-being, their social well-being, their physical well-being, and on top of all that, she cares about the well-being of their hearts and souls. She teaches the kids more than the curriculum, more than how to be a good student and a good learner. She teaches them to be good people, good friends, good humans, just like her. And I think that was so clear tonight in our circle with you. So thank you.
Well done.
All right, I get to do our last award, and I thank you to President Wilson who let me pinch hit on this one because Mr. Hartnett, I don't see him, right? Mr. Hartnett is one of our fourth grade ALPS teachers, and he happens to be my kiddo's teacher this year, and I could have written some wonderful things about him. Maybe I'll make a couple of comments, but more important than what I have to say is the fact that two different students lifted up Mr. Hartnett and asked that he receive this award. One of them said, these are both incredibly touching, when I was having a really hard time and acting like I didn't have a care in the world, I didn't want to be here, Mr. Hartnett was there for me. And he was there for me 100% of the way. And he helped me realize that I do matter. So I don't know how you could go further than that, but here's what the next kiddo says. It's not a competition, also incredibly touching. Mr. Hartnett has gone above and beyond by being very kind and a funny teacher, teaching us lots of stuff in a really fun and nice way. I really look up to him. My older brother got to learn from him, and I always hoped I could too. He includes everybody and makes everyone feel so special. His classroom is a library with a lot of diverse books, so we can see ourselves represented in them. He gives us really interesting problems to solve and makes science and math fun. He is a very good teacher. I want to be a fourth grade ALPS teacher at Ammerman, just like him when I grow up. What could I add to that? Well, I mean, in the first week of school, my student who is his own person came to me and he said, Mr. Hartnett taught me a way to listen that it works, he said to me. And it was about how he would rotate his body and look and face the person who is speaking. And I mean, that sounds pretty obvious, but for some kids, Mr. Hartnett, like in a week, could see physically a thing to suggest, to help a kiddo with what is his own special need in the moment. And I could say a couple other stories like that. He loves Mr. Hartnett, and obviously these two students do. They feel like they matter. They feel like they have a model. So from the entire Board of Education, with heartfelt appreciation, we'll be giving Mr. Hartnett his award. And thank you.
All right, that concludes our ABCD awards. Dr. Weber, anything else?
Oh, no, it's just a high point in the evening. Just fantastic to see these folks here and the team that's over there to support the people who are honored as well. So, ready to roll?
All right, that brings us to number 8B on our agenda tonight, our Michigan Medicine and CACH presentation. I'll turn it over to Dr. Weber.
Sure. Tonight we're going to have we had a beginning discussion or an earlier discussion about an opportunity around potentially, helping to further support needs that our students and families may have. So I'm going to hand this over to Ms. Hoppenstedt. This is a presentation regarding more of the details on it, more information. And we're actually, I know, here tonight joined by a couple folks. So Ms. Hoppenstedt, if you want to go ahead and do your thing.
Sure thing. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again on this Child and Adolescent Healthcare Center. I don't know if the slide presentation that we have can be shared. But so last week we discussed this as a committee of the whole, and you had an introduction to the Adolescent and Child Healthcare Center and the partnership with Michigan Medicine. And tonight the plan is to review the presentation again briefly for those that are in the audience or watching virtually, because last week it was not recorded. And then an introduction to the ROS directors who are joining us, looks like, and then move into a discussion and Q&A around the process, communication, and next steps. Okay, so let's see.
While you're queuing that up, I just want to say for the audience that there's no vote on this issue tonight. We're fact gathering and learning. So really appreciate that you could bring these folks to add to that and aid us.
Great. Okay, so what is a Child and Adolescent Health Center? We discussed this a little bit last week, but really it's about promoting the health of children, adolescents, and their families by providing that preventative and early intervention healthcare services. And a really good question was asked. Do I have control over this? Okay. Regarding why Child and Adolescent Health Center in Northville, and really wanted to share some data that kind of drives that why. And this is both national, and then I'll share a bit of local data. So you can see, unfortunately now in Michigan, death by suicide is tied with unintentional injury as the leading cause of death for 10 to 14-year-olds. Nationally, it's the second leading cause of death for children. So as I mentioned last week, we really are in a mental health crisis. 70.17% of communities did not have enough mental health care providers to serve residents. We have 50% of mental illness begins at age 14. And 75% of those mental illnesses begin by age 24. So that early prevention is super important. And I've linked an article for you to review from Bridge Magazine on the youth mental health crisis. And it really just talks about the access and the need for screening by physicians oftentimes, as they're the contact that our young people have as they go to their yearly physicals and such. And just also a reminder about the mind and body connection. Our mental health affects our physical health, and our physical health affects our mental health. So they're intertwined, and there is that connection there. So, unfortunately, as we discussed a bit last week, those trend lines for suicide rates and mental illness are not going in a positive direction, and looking for different access points to ensure that our kids get what they need to thrive. I'm going to give a local data snapshot of what our 11th grade students reported last year in the MyFi survey. And you can look at some of these data points. They're concerning. During the past 12 months, did you ever seriously consider or attempt suicide? And we had 10% of our students say yes to that. During the past 12 months, did you ever feel so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that you stopped doing some usual activities? And just over 26% of students said yes. And then thinking about those family systems and how important those are for our kids. Have you ever lived with someone who was depressed, mentally ill, or suicidal? And just over 21% of students said yes. So that just gives us a snapshot locally of what our young people are reporting and experiencing. Also, last week, I shared a bit of the stakeholder input from the 31AA survey that we sent to our community. And just as a reminder of who completed the survey and how many respondents we had. But for this one, the top response for what our stakeholders believed our needs are increased behavioral interventions and supports for struggling students. I talked a bit about the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services grant opportunity and really what this is. It's a competitive grant that we would apply for. We need a health partner in this, and that is why Michigan Medicine is here with us this evening to talk about how that partnership would look for a health center here at Northville. And that grant does open up likely in January, so that's kind of the time frame that we're on. There are legal requirements to a healthcare center and part of the grant, and we discussed this a bit again last week, but understanding that there is a minor consent law that I know is, I'm assuming discuss a bit as we go on, but that's kind of the pause point for many of us, and that law is kind of described in this document, and you all have access to that. What we believe are the opportunities and benefits is really around that early identification and prevention, access for uninsured, recognizing that here in Northville that we don't have a significant number of families that are uninsured, but we do have some. And the coordination of services is really important, being able to have that coordination to those specialty services that U of M offers. There's also ease of access for students and families, and we know that we have very busy scheduled kids and families, so that ease of access is one of the benefits. Less time away from school and instruction when kids can get what they need in the schoolhouse. And an additional option in our continuum of support as we think about our service providers and those that are kind of coming together in our multidisciplinary teams to look at students' data and their functioning in school and deciding what it is they might need, which may be more intensive services and supports. And that leads me to our partnership. You linked in the slide, and I believe it was shared last week, is the University of Michigan Health Center documents and slides that are linked in. So I won't go through those. I'm sure we'll have some conversation about that. And then also the roadmap that we're aiming to follow here, and you can kind of see where we began, where we are kind of at the end of this road here was the meeting last week. And that leads us into where we are tonight. And again, the grant opens in January. We would aim to apply for that grant. We would need a letter of support from the board to partner with our Michigan Medicine friends. And then the idea would be to open this center in August. So onto the RAS discussion. We have with us this evening Mohammed Karatz and Dr. Steve Park. And I'm hoping that you can both hear us and we can hear you okay. Is that a yes?
There we go.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear us?
Oh,
There we go.
there we go.
Well, welcome to Northville, kind of. This is Dr. Weber, the superintendent here. I want to thank both of you. I think one of you is teaching up till 7 o'clock tonight, and I know that you've put a lot of time and effort into this, the 32-year history of Roz, and the different locations that you've been in. And we're very grateful that you're here to answer questions from our Board of Education tonight. We have provided as many answers as we can to our board prior to this, but sincerely, a super warm Mustang welcome to you. It's not a surprise to either of you. I did 500 building visits in the last year and a half. I've interfaced with community members, students, and so on. Undeniably, what comes up again and again and again comes around the well-being of our students and families. Safety is one conversation that's often had, but very close second or tied for first is that around the well-being of our children. So thank you both for your commitment to that journey, and we're looking forward to asking some questions. So thank you.
Can I just tee up a couple of things from my perspective, and we'll get into board questions. So I just want to say also thank you to the team for bringing this potential opportunity to us. And all the information that you've provided already. I mean, you've heard us talking for as long as I've been on the board and beyond that, that we are focused intently on student mental health and well-being and physical health as well. From my perspective, you noted the Bridge article. I think back to 2019, there's a Washington Post article that first sort of really raised red flags for me about districts like ours being declared to be at risk because of the pressures that our kids face, the stresses, and well above and beyond what are seen in other districts, right? So I think this is something that we need to look at, take a hard look at, and that's what we're here to do. I think beyond the mental health issues and the suicide, numbers and trends that the team has pointed out, I mean, just the fact that this would lessen the time away from school. I mean, that's something that I hadn't thought about. Having a convenient health center sort of on district premises, I think has a lot of potential from my perspective and a lot of benefit. A ton of questions, I think, and a lot of exploration still needs to be done. But I just want it to be said, thank you for bringing something like this for our consideration and for the community's consideration. And I think folks are interested in it, interested in learning more, interested in pressure testing it. I know I have questions. The team has answered a ton of questions so far. In the last 72 hours, I think, a lot of questions and answers and information. So I just wanted to set that out for the team and just say thank you for at least for bringing this to us. And thank you for the folks, from Michigan Medicine. So I know folks have questions. Jim, you had questions. I don't know if I want to kick it off to you or who wants to go first with leaning into questions, unless there's a different agenda or way you want to go about things.
Can I ask
Yeah.
maybe just two quick questions, hopefully? I'm curious about what would a pipeline between the school and this health center look like? What kind of, would the office be directing kids to go to the health center? I think that would raise a lot of concerns for me. So I guess that's the first question, is how that coordination would happen.
That's a really great question. Maybe we could open it up and allow our Michigan team here to give us an overview or intro on how referral process works into even into billing and some of the other questions that have come up.
Dr. Park, would you like to tackle that one, or would you like me to do it? Either way. Why don't we introduce ourselves? I'll let you go first. Great. All right. Pleasure to meet you all. My name is Mohammed Farzad. I provide Mo Farzad. I'm the director of the Regional Alliance for Healthy Schools here at Michigan Medicine, and I will hand over how we introduce himself. And Steve Park, I am a primary care pediatrician with Michigan Medicine, and I serve as the medical director for Roz. I will attempt to answer your question. So our clinic operates within the brick and mortar boundaries of your school. However, it operates really as its own separate Michigan Medicine entity in that the consent for care and for appointments is really set up by the parent or guardian in the case of what we call a general consent, or the mature minor, and we may talk about this as far as the consent laws and such. Whereas teachers and concerned administrative staff can encourage a student to come seek our service or encourage a parent, that the consent for that care would have to be, and for that visit would have to be approved according to those consent laws. So indeed, they don't just walk them down and say, hey, we need to see this patient, etc. As you may, be more used to in the model of like a school nurse, who is actually an official entity of the school. We really are our own separate health center. I don't know if that answers the question. I'm happy to try it again if need be.
No, I think that definitely answers that question.
So I probably fired 10 or 12 questions last week and not going to be shy now. I get the concept of more is always better, right? Oh, we want more of this, more of that, and that's great, right? And I did kind of challenge your own team to say is, well, when you look at, Michigan data, or if you look at statewide data, what's the real problem we're trying to solve here at Northville, right? What is it we're trying to solve? And honestly, I'm still not 100% sure I get the answer to it. And while there's a convenience factor, and I get that, right? Having a medical clinic on site provides a lot of benefits, right? There's the issue of, we talked about soft stuff last week about every year we have lots of students who have to get medical checkups because of sports. Having a center in the school would certainly make that a convenience feature, right? Or we talked about, how many times have parents got a call from the school that the child is sick and you got to come get them, take them to a clinic. If there was a facility within the district, that's a convenience factor. So I get those kind of things, right? When we get into the mental health piece of it, there was talk about there's all these issues, right? There is suicide, and I agree. We're seeing a lot more of it lately. I'm probably not the best subject here because I grew up in an era where very different from today. When I grew up, it was something was going wrong. You were getting bullied. You were stressed. You were whatever. We got a lot of the suck it up, buttercup. This is a tough world, and you got to go deal with it. That was one side, and it was probably the wrong where we need to be. We're swinging the pendulum now to the other side of it, where everything's a mental health issue, and sometimes I think we kind of almost overboard. We do really find that balance. But the thing that concerns me the most is when I started reading into this idea of consent laws and Michigan confidentiality. There's a whole list of items that it turns out if we put a center in one of our schools, 14-year-olds can go to the clinic on their own without consent from a parent, right? They can get services, and in fact, the services won't necessarily be communicated to an adult. I'll be honest, that scares the living hell out of me. You as a parent are ultimately responsible for your children, and you've lived with them for 14 years, so you know them better than anybody else. And so, to have a child go in and potentially, getting guidance or getting recommendations or, I don't know, getting counseling without the parent knowing about it scares the heck out of me. Now, whether we have a clinic within our school or not, Can a child still do that? They can, right? But they literally have to get into a car or get on their bike or get on whatever it is they do, and they have to go find a clinic. And so it's more difficult to do. You place that clinic within our schools, and now we kind of are making that much easier, right? And this, I'm not a huge fan of the Michigan confidentiality laws where where things can happen without parents' knowledge. I am not a fan of that at all. And so therefore creating a situation within the school that facilitates the ease of that happening makes me really nervous. Now, I haven't said I'm against this, but it's something I'm really worried about. And what I think is that, if we're going to consider this, I think parents really need to understand what exactly is covered under those rules, what can happen without your consent, and are you really willing to take on those risks? Now, I don't think this is, I don't think there's anybody who's, maliciously doing things. I'm not a, not a conspiracist theory type person. But once you open the door to Pandora's box, it's kind of hard to kind of close it, and it worries the heck out of me, right? So I'm going to place that kind of on the table. We say that our kids can't drive. They can't smoke, they can't vape, they can't drink alcohol. They sure as hell aren't supposed to take drugs. We don't want them to own or buy guns and a whole bunch of other things because they're mentally not developed enough to make those decisions on their own. Yet we're talking about potentially putting a clinic within our school district that facilitates situations that we're going to allow children to be consulted. And this is a great center, by the way. I have nothing against U of M. It's just the general concept. I want our families to really know what they're getting into, but to potentially get services without parents even knowing. In fact, Michigan confidentiality says that we can't tell the parents. We're a district that prides ourselves on parental involvement. This is kind of going the opposite way. Kind of an interesting thing is, I'd never really thought about this, but I asked our own team and said, okay, well, what exactly can happen on this Michigan confidentiality? And unfortunately, I couldn't open the link, but there is a link and we'll get some more information about it. The board can review. But I asked kind of a sidebar question, and I thought this was really interesting. So my question that I posed to our team was, I said, since this subject is already raised, does NPS or our counselors have situations where we don't tell parents about mental health related issues? If so, what examples can you share where we keep information from parents? I wasn't looking to get an individual person, just what topics might that occur on, hoping that there was none. And it turns out, I think the answer is there probably are situations that are occurring today that we don't know about. School counselors, they have ethical standards for how they do counseling. And I guess there are requirements and limits of confidentiality outlined in the document. So it probably goes on today. And to be honest, I was surprised. I didn't realize that today, not counting this, there are situations where counselors are having discussions with students that potentially deal with mental health or other issues, and the parents are being excluded from that. I didn't even know that. I didn't even think to answer that question until today. So that's my worry beads, and I'll just leave it at that. I'm not saying no to this, but I think we need to make sure our community really knows what they're getting into before we just say yes.
Okay, I didn't hear a question for our guest.
It wasn't a
there.
question,
Oh,
it was a
okay.
statement
Okay.
of a worry bead.
All right. Well, we're on the topic of consent. So thank you very much to both of you for coming and joining us at this probably late in the evening for you meeting. But I do want to acknowledge that the success of Michigan's Regional Alliance for Healthy Schools is in 15 schools. Is that an accurate count as of today? You have 15 school clinics? Is that correct? I'm reading it off your list, so I'm, Are they hearing me?
We currently have 17 programs.
17, okay, wonderful. And again, looking at the kind of documentation that can be retrieved off of the internet is all I have in my hand, and I'm sure that, it could be not your most, it looks like there's a 2023 date at the bottom, so it should be pretty close. But I have a question. When a parent is considering consenting for the participation of their student in the clinic, in the school, and they look at the general consent for healthcare services, it's titled "An Important Patient Information for a Child." Are parents able to amend or line out any of the services that are listed as being available in the clinic? And so therefore, can the parent line out any that they're not happy with or comfortable with?
Yes, I mean, the general consent is, I don't know, just a little bit, looks like roll now, there we go. Both of our consents, both the general consent and the minor consent for care, are reviewed and discussed with either the parent or guardian or the minor consenting patient, such that they do have the option to specify. And, as an example, we have some families that are fine with physical health services but don't want their child to receive mental health services, and we can line that out, or vice versa, or whatever. Just as an assurance, you may see in the general consent that parents are providing consent for immunizations. We never do that as a blanket sort of consent process. It's important to us to provide the highest quality and safest healthcare. So, by policy, our providers always reconfirm with the parent or guardian that they actively provide that consent, not just that it was given at the time that they signed it. And, for purposes of for example, influenza vaccine, the child may forget that they got it at Walgreens last week, and we don't want to duplicate that. So we are always actively seeking that consent and verifying it, and in contact with our parents and communicating back to them about the services that their child is providing.
So that's an interesting answer. Does that mean that the consent form will override Michigan confidentiality? I mean, if that does, that's a great check and balance.
No, it won't. That's federal and state law. Here's the kind of things that are on.
The question was whether the consent red line would overrule state law on parent consent, for example, for STI testing.
For confidentiality?
Yeah, if the parent redlined out something, would that mean that the child then couldn't self-request that same kind of treatment? Is that?
It would not.
Right.
No, the child always has that right to seek those services under law in the state of Michigan. Just so you know, I'm very aware that it looks scary on paper, but I want you to know that, we are committed to being very responsible in this care. We take it very seriously, that we are always encouraging our patients to be involving their parents, their loved ones, etc. It is in the rare case that students come to us feeling very actively that they don't have the option to pursue these types of services with the active involvement of their parent or guardian. That is not the majority at all of the services that we provide. The vast majority are done in very active conversation with parents and guardians, others, according to confidentially the HIPAA requirements, to provide the active type of care that you might be used to your children receiving in a regular primary care practice. And to that end, we do so in active collaboration with primary care physicians. As I said, I am one, and it's very important to us not to interfere with that relationship either. So, whereas we can talk a lot about the minor consent, those are important laws to allow for kids that don't have other options to receive those services. But it is certainly not our active encouragement to dissuade them or in any way prevent them from involving parents or guardians.
Kim, Dr. Patel, do you mind if I ask a quick question about the consent, just since you're asking about consent for clarification
Sure.
purposes? When we're talking about consent, does it operate like if I went to my child's doctor and I would give consent at each visit, or is this some sort of blanket kind of consent that is given through the school district at the beginning of the year?
They have very specific forms. So you-
Specific to the visit or specific to your child?
To allow your student to walk into the clinic.
Each time?
Seek care. No, you have given your permission for your child to be seen in that clinic, in the consent.
Right, but is it consenting for the school year or are you consenting for a visit?
You're consenting for the duration in which that patient would be eligible for our services. So theoretically up to age 21. You do not need to provide consent each year, but you do maintain the option of rescinding that consent at any time.
Okay, so once I fill out the consent form for my child, that consent form lasts until they're 21? Or actually would be 18, wouldn't it? Because then they could go on their own.
Sure, yeah, they would switch to an adult consent at age 18.
Okay, thank you.
So just to continue understanding what kind of imprint a parent can put on this consent form, there's several bulleted in a list. Number one, what services does ROS provide? And then there's a list. And I would earlier asked if parents can eliminate or line out any of these bullets that perhaps they're not willing to consent for, leaving the ones that they are. And I think you answered in the affirmative that a parent could say health education, risk prevention counseling is fine with me, but individual, group, family therapy is not, or, is there that kind of a opportunity to adapt the consent or choose from this list what they want to consent for versus are not willing to consent for? This is on frequently asked questions about the general treatment consent form. And so there's just an example of a variety of services which are being offered. And I'm not even sure that all of these will be part of the menu of opportunity here in Northville. But this is an example of your form.
I'm having a hard time hearing your question. I apologize.
Okay.
Audio issues.
Is there a mic maybe that's like louder, or can you maybe yell into your mics? I mean,
maybe I could do it better. Does it sound? I'm trying to look and speak at the same time, and it's just hard not to have.
They can't see us anyway. So.
They can't see us.
Well, they can see the giant table you see in the corner.
Oh, okay. All right.
They're not seeing that you're facing them.
Okay, good. It's just odd to talk to somebody without looking at them in their face. All right. So I think that this topic of consent is emerged as the first kind of level of concern that maybe our audience is here to listen more about. But I did pick up in your last response that the minor consent, the types of crises that students might be experiencing who do not perceive that they have sufficient supporters in their family group who might walk into this school clinic in crises is a relatively rare occurrence, and that every effort by the standard of practice for the care of young people in this age group is by definition family-centric always. That is the desirable model that guides care of youth, is to see them as a member of a wider family support group. And it's only the exception in a crisis, in a well-defined subset of crises, and I'm reading it off of a handout, that the clinician in this school center, as you run it, would consider the minors, right of privacy to seek care in a crisis event. So I look at this as the minors' right for privacy in seeking care. But is that true? The rareness of this occurrence that we're concerned about? Minor consent, and how often does it, relatively speaking, how often is that an issue that rises in your clinics?
Are you talking about an emergency situation related to minor?
Well, I mean, if a minor thinks she's pregnant and comes in to ask for a pregnancy test, I'm calling that a crisis, because that child is in, or that youth obviously is afraid and scared and coming in for a pregnancy test. So are you having to call upon the student's right to privacy to go ahead and provide that care under the minor consent law? Very often, relatively speaking.
I mean, it depends site to site, obviously as to what percentage of our care is what we would call minor consented care versus general consented care. It is absolutely a frequent and common part of our practice as we are caring for adolescents that sometimes have high-risk sexual behavior. As we started out in the presentation, significant mental health issues, that indeed they are seeking services for these things. It's part of the gamut of the services that we provide. In the example that you give about students seeking pregnancy testing, obviously we need to make sure that indeed they have a consent for that. And if not, that we sit down with them and that they understand what it means to consent to that type of care and do an evaluation that they are indeed mature enough, not just because of the age of eligibility by law, but that indeed as a provider, we can verify that they truly do understand what services are being provided and how to receive the necessary education and intervention, follow-up, all that stuff that their parent or guardian would otherwise be responsible for. So is it common in our service delivery that we see that type of visit? It is. I hope that answers the question.
Let me ask you, can I take a shot? Let me ask it this way. You said among the instances, and you said it's rare, infrequent, not common, where the minor consent law comes into play, or where the parents are not involved or have not given consent, right? If we're looking at, let's just say, the high school data that you gave us, almost 500 high school patients seen, 3,300 patient visits. Is there a way to put some numbers? If it's a best guess percentage, that's all you have. But what do you think in terms of the percentage of numbers of visits or patients that come in, and it'd probably be visits that are done under the minor consent law, right? Where a parent doesn't consent or parents not involved. Does that question make sense? We're looking to get a little bit more specificity around how rare it is. Like, is there any way to put a number around it, or a ballpark number?
Dr. Park, let me chime in a little bit on that. In regards to the minor consent piece, I will say that throughout our 17 health centers, that piece is rare. I can give you, I can have data pulls from our data analytics to give actual percentages. But one thing I want to highlight in regards to minor consents are always reviewed and discussed with the minor that's requesting minor consent by a clinical medical provider. That clinical medical provider has to be able to legally diagnose that patient or that child to say that they are competent, they are mature enough, and they are clinically competent in regards to the maturity level of what it is that they're seeking services. And I'll give an example on that. So for example, a high school student is coming in sexually active, contacted one of our providers. They want to have a pregnancy test done. They feel that they're pregnant. We end up, obviously the clinical providers are assessing them to make sure that they fall into this area of qualifications. And let's say they do assess them and that they discover that this child is pregnant. Now, that clinical provider is going to utilize every single avenue to be able to have discussions with the child, to be able to, one, make sure that they're going to be safe, that they are in a safe environment, they are in a safe home environment where if their parents can find out that they are actually pregnant, there's no harm that's going to be done to this child. But they also try to use every single effort to comfort them and bring the parent or guardian into the conversation. We are not in any way, shape, or form to replace the parents or guardian's place, nor are we in any way, shape, or form to replace the local PCPs in the community, because no matter what, that child is then referred back out to the local PCPs within the community to have further medical care.
Can I?
I hope I was able to clarify.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you so much. I hope that was your question. I
Yeah,
answered.
I think-
It was helpful to me. Thank you for your time. You're going to find that if you partner with us or if we partner with you, whatever happens there, the school board, we ask a lot of questions and we kick tires up one side and down the other. We don't do anything part way. So if you feel like there's lots of questions, and we've certainly gotten a lot of out of your written materials, it's because we do everything that way. It's not you. So, and especially with something this important. I just want to understand, I want to change a little bit off of this consent question and understand the experience of a parent. People close to me have been this parent, and I've heard some from the community. So kiddo is upset, acting withdrawn, emotionally changed, suspected of some emotional distress disorder, something, parent feels child needs mental health help. What is going to be the experience of access to care in your clinic? I mean, what is your, what does the data show, or what can you tell us about wait lists, timing, just access to a professional who can say, is this child at risk of harm to themselves? Is this child maybe exhibiting symptoms of depression? Is this child because I want to understand, what would be the advancement of having a clinic in the school versus going to your personal physician? In other words, what is going to be the day-to-day experience of that particular need?
Absolutely. That part, I'd like to tackle that first, and then I'll hand over to you as well. From a clinical standpoint, any patient that is coming to our doors from a behavioral health perspective, we have in every single clinic a fully licensed clinical psychotherapist on staff that is able to provide behavioral health services across the wide gamut. In addition to that, we have a virtual behavioral health home, which is our virtual health center, that provides another second layer of behavioral health therapists that are clinically able to assess from a telehealth standpoint, in addition to the one that's housed on site. So from, let's just say you want to go to a local behavioral health office, a private office. With us being there, with us being in the school district, we are a safety net. We are able to immediately take that referral, whether it's coming from the school counselor or the school teacher or the parent, or let's just say they came down from the main office. They're noticing some issues and concerns about the student's behavior. Even sometimes security can get involved and say, hey, they would kind of connect this student with your clinical staff. because there are some underlying issues that we'd like, you guys to be able to assess here. In all of those situations, because we are right there in the school district, we are able to provide the services much faster than being at a outside office or local office. And Dr. Park, I'll hand over for you as well to further elaborate.
Yeah, I think, one of the major benefits that we see and that we can present to school officials is that national data shows that any school that has a school-based health center has an 80% increase in in-seat time for their students, meaning that the health center helps to get kids healthy enough and ready enough to learn, which is what they're there to do in your school. So why does that happen? Just as Mo has said, that if an issue is identified, if a parent has a concern that they would bring to their primary care physician typically, they now have an additional option that they could utilize services within our health center. As a provider in primary care, I can tell you it is very difficult. We have limited mental health resources in the community. As a provider working within my ROS clinic, my school-based health clinic, I have a highly trained, very experienced adolescent therapist at my disposal. Do we indeed have wait lists at times? Unfortunately, we do, as part of the issue that you mentioned, that mental health crises are on the rise. But I can certainly tell you from my professional experience that it is always, easier for us, especially with our virtual mental health program that Mo referred to. If we can't get a patient in face-to-face visit, we can do so with our virtual health providers. And again, in that example, if somebody, if the school said, we think this child should be seen, etc., it wouldn't be any different than what would have happened if you don't have a school-based health center, that we would expect that the school would contact the parent or guardian and encourage them to seek services, but that in the event that we were in your building, we would become one of those options for access to mental health service in addition to ones that they would otherwise have.
Thank you.
One of the questions I have, I'm a mental health counselor myself. I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in private practice. And I'm curious to know a little bit about how do you coordinate care amongst the disciplines, right? That you have a child that's presenting with perhaps substance abuse, perhaps significant anxiety, perhaps significant depression. Maybe they've been skipping school, so the school's been alerted like there's something going on. How do you work with the multidisciplinary team then also with psychiatry, adolescent psychiatry, obviously, family therapy, individual therapy for the adolescent? Just curious to know, like, to me, this seems like a really wonderful opportunity that it kind of breaks down some of those barriers that as a provider I struggle with. Like, I'm not sure who to refer some of my kids to, psychiatrists are full. So how does that improve access also in terms of this system for U of M, for the RAS?
Yeah, we do. We have a very close affiliation with our Department of Psychiatry. Many of the outreach efforts that they do statewide are first piloted through ROS. For example, we have a program by which we can get very rapid, within hours, consultation of a child psychiatrist, mental health professional to assist us with complicated issues. We do know our limits. Obviously, many of patients that have higher level concerns don't belong getting exclusive care in a school-based health center. The primary care physician and appropriate mental health providers need to be involved. As a community-based organization, we have very rich collaborations with other mental health providers and other agencies that you may be referring to. And we closely follow the appropriate FERPA and HIPAA regulations, but do seek to collaborate with school-based counselors, et cetera, within the limits, the confines of those laws, to, allow for meaningful exchange for the betterment of, that child's outcomes. When we do that, obviously the parent or guardian is very involved in the process and very actively giving that consent to, for those collaborative discussions.
Can I ask an implementation question? Because we haven't really decided, but you said you've got 17, I think, facilities. Some of them are middle schools, some of them are high schools. Based on your experience, how do you start? Is it best to start in a high school situation and then grow into a middle school, or have you done it different ways? So I'm just curious what your history is and why you would start at one versus another.
We've done it various ways. In some districts, we start off in elementaries. Other districts, we start off in high schools, others in middle schools. Realistically, from that stance, is obviously where is there the most need? Where is there the larger significant number of students that we can impact most? So usually, if a school has, one school has 500 students, the other school might have 800 students. Obviously, we want to put our footprint closer in the school that has 800 students to be able to have more impactful services for that larger number of students that are there. And then transition over into the other schools. A lot of districts, we actually are in several schools within those districts. Some schools that have a campus approach that actually have a high school, middle school, and elementary school that's set on one campus. Year after year, we open up a health center within each one of the schools. So each school has its own independent health center, its independent clinical providers from a ABD standpoint, which is an advanced practice practitioner, such as a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant. In addition to MD hours, they all have a fully licensed clinical social worker that's on site. So then we're able to provide additional resources on a school-by-school basis.
Let me just make sure I understand something correctly. So if we were to implement this here, we have something like 10 buildings. Let's say we set up a center in one of our middle schools. That's still, even though it's on site at Hillside, for instance, just as an example, kids from across the district could come. Right? We're not limiting the services to just the physical building in which the center is located. So that, I guess, in my mind, alleviates a little bit the concern about students just being able to walk down the hall and do something that their parents might not love them doing, or talk about something that their parents don't love them doing. And we're talking about setting this up in a limited number of buildings, and I'm not sure, I'd like to know how would that be different than the Michigan Medicine Center that is at 7 and Haggerty, right? I mean, this is just setting up a much more convenient, student-oriented center. I'm thinking out loud here, but of course we could expand into other locations across the district, but yeah.
Can I
Just an observation,
ask
I
a
guess.
question about the grant process? Mind if I jump in really quick? So I'm curious if the grant process is open to anyone in Michigan, why would they pick us? A district that has a lot of families that have health insurance. I recognize the mental health issues of our district, but we are not an underserved district. So I'm curious, obviously, we're not going to get a grant if we don't apply for it. But why would they pick us?
So just to clarify on that, the fiduciary, meaning the healthcare institution, is the person that would be applying for the grant. What they would be doing is they would be identifying your school district as a site to open up within. Now, previously, historically, before the, high national needs of behavioral health services, these grants used to be one of the main primary focus used to be for having a 60% free reduced lunch for districts that would be able to qualify to have these grants. However, that is no longer a requirement due to the needs of behavioral health services all across the nation, let alone physical health services all across the nation. So I would like to say, why would they not choose your district? Why would they not choose you? Because realistically, healthcare does not discriminate. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter if a student comes from a established household, a family that has a high income, a family that is very proactive in that student's life. There's still national data out there that shows these students also go through challenges. They suffer just like any other student out there. I hope I was able to answer that question for you, and I can further elaborate if you'd like.
Yep. I have a question since we're talking about the grant process and that Roz will serve as the fiduciary. Are there any additional requirements or obligations that the state defines over and above what's in your documents internally and the way you run the clinic? Are you in sync with what the MDHHS requires for the terms of the grant? I guess is what I'm saying.
We would be providing all of the documents as the fiduciary of the grant. So any form of, I guess, data per se, we needed data or we needed just general information, we would be working with the district to obtain that information.
Okay,
Can I just
go ahead.
Can I just tick through a few things that I read that were of question and just confirm that we're understanding them correctly? Under state law, any center would not provide any referral for abortion care, would not allow a minor to self-consent for immunization, and if there was no insurance or student opt-in, student consent, there would be no bill sent to the parent. In other words, it would be free care. Are those 3 points? Do I have those 3 things right?
There would never be a bill for the parent. What I mean by that is obviously we do bill the insurance, but there is never a form of coping. Now, if the parent hasn't met their deductible, that would be a different discussion. That's a deductible discussion with them and their private insurance. But there was never in any way, shape, or form where they would be receiving an actual bill from us. What they would be receiving is an EOP or explanation of benefits for the types of services that were provided to their student that's on their healthcare plan or healthcare insurance plan.
Can you clarify?
Clinical question or statements are correct, the way that you understand it.
Can you clarify then, so for people who would have a deductible and they would visit the clinic for whatever reason, then the grant would cover that portion of their deductible? Is that accurate or no? No, okay. There's just no.
There are no out-of-pocket expenses.
There's no yes, correct. There's no out-of-pocket expenses for our program.
So can I say it back to you? So co-pays would not be charged. You would try to bill insurance. If the deductible hadn't been met, then the state or Michigan or somebody other than the school district and the parent would absorb the cost. Is that what you're saying? If it's not covered by insurance?
We absorb the cost from a state perspective. We end up writing off costs that our charities, the community, that goes under our charity giving campaigns that we do in different community that we're in.
Can I say it even more directly? Someone comes in, their parent has a high deductible medical insurance plan. They haven't met the deductible. The kid has 4 different sessions. There's a $1,000 bill. The insurance won't pay. Does the parent ever have to pay any dollars?
No.
We should double check a Q&A because there was a Q&A that we got. I don't know for maybe for you, but something about the cost is similar to an urgent care center. So I
wasn't similar.
maybe I misread it wrong.
It was not.
You don't. Okay.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
We
Okay.
are not an urgent care or a safety net in the community, so we do not operate in any way, shape, or form as a local ECP or local urgent care. We're not structured that way. Even from a billing perspective, we're not structured that way.
Okay. I got a question, and may hope you have an answer for it, but you talked about the reason why, so the question came up from another board member is, why choose us? Because we're not an at-risk kind of district. And you said that mental health isn't, mental health is an equal opportunity situation. So my question is, based on your past experience, what's the percentage of, I'll say, care you give that falls either under mental health or falls under more traditional? Because we talked about giving, health exams for sports or other cuts and bleeds and I got a cold kind of stuff. What's your history, or what's your experience? Is it 50-50? Is it more traditional, or is it more mental health? I'm just curious what your experience has shown you.
So on my end, I would say you see a mix of that occurring within every site, every district is kind of unique in its own. But I would say you see an even mix of it. So for example, like if you have a district that has a very high sports team, right? We could be doing sports physicals, for a couple weeks out. But then there could also be potential if there's districts that have a high behavioral health need within those districts. And that's when our behavioral health team is extremely busy and booked out in some cases. And that's where our virtual behavioral health home is able to further assist. So it's a unique mix that you'll notice. It depends district per district, but I'll let Dr. Park elaborate on it from a clinical standpoint.
Yeah, I would agree. If I compare it to my primary care practice, where I see kids from 0 to 21, indeed, when we narrow it down where we're primarily caring for middle and high school students, obviously or maybe not obviously, the mental health and sexual health, especially as we get to the high school population, percent of our care does go up, obviously, just because it's a more prominent medical issue in that age group than it would be across the whole age gamut. But indeed, we provide child care, sports physicals, as was mentioned. We help kids that have a sore throat first thing in the morning, stay at school, get their throat swabbed, get an answer as to whether they can stay at school, potentially get some minor over-the-counter medication to make them feel better, and get them back on their seat. And we provide mental health care and sexual health care. So indeed, the gamut of services.
Right. And did you want to follow up?
I just wanted to echo a point. I'm looking at the data in the presentation that we saw last week, and I think you might have gone through tonight. But just as for instance, middle school data snapshot, among physical and behavioral healthcare services, almost 6,000 patient visits, about half of those were behavioral health related. So, I mean, that does bear out or speak to that sort of breakdown. I think, Mohammed, you spoke to that, 50-50 physical, behavioral. Go ahead.
I don't think it's ever that high. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't have that data in front of me, but typically in reviewing our patient visits, it's, a third, 2/3 towards physical health, typically at most of our centers. But
I think he's referencing, Dr. Park, I think he's referencing the PowerPoint that I presented to the district, but that's a collaboration of 17 health centers, not just one middle school or one health center.
I do recall that we do have a couple of mental health only clinics, so that would skew that data towards obviously 100% mental health.
Okay. I think a question would probably fall into the physical health domain in that we have students in the school who have chronic conditions. So that would be kids on inhalers with asthma and in maybe variable control. They could seek care if they are having problems managing their asthma. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right. And actually, and I'm the other clinician, licensed clinician on the school board, just to say I'm advanced practice nurse. So I'll probably want to ask some questions about chronic, helping kids with chronic conditions. I also am the parent of a student who was diagnosed in the 5th grade with type 1 diabetes. So if there's diet or exercise or multi-dosing of insulin during the school day, that kind of thing, or if they get into trouble with low blood sugars, or they, for whatever reason are out of control, they can seek they can come to the clinic. You can.
They can. I think, we want to be careful to not confuse the issue of like the healthcare responsibility that may be required through a 504 plan, whatever that may entail as far as someone at the school, typically a school nurse, being responsible for checking blood sugars or whatever based on the plan. That is not what we do. We function more as you might guess your primary care physician would do if you took an ill child to the office for evaluation. So indeed, in that example you gave about a diabetic, they could come down and we can evaluate, what their blood sugar is, see what's going on that may be tipping them over the edge, help them with hydration and appropriate, snack if they're low, and get their parent or guardian on the phone to figure out what the next level of care would be.
Sure.
I was hoping you could speak a little bit about the advisory boards and their role in your other clinics and how they're particular to a specific district, what kind of role they have individualizing what is happening at the clinics. Based on what you're saying, it sounds like there's a set things that you do depending on where you're at. You might have mental health only clinics, but for generalization, like what is the role of the advisory board and how do you work with them?
Can you speak to that, Mo?
I'm having a hard time understanding.
Community advisory council. Sort of what is the role of CACs within our program?
Yeah, absolutely. So in regards to the Community Advisory Council, typically these are scheduled during the school day with the schools, school staff, parents, teachers, community partners are invited in addition to YAC groups often present as well. But the Community Advisory Boards are predominantly board meetings that are director driven, where we can discuss ways for us to be able to host these events within the district and share information collectively as a win-win with the district, where we're able to have our policies reviewed together with these community advisory boards to get feedback and answer any questions that, whether it's parents that have the questions, teachers, anyone in general, to be able to collaborate as a team, as a joint effort.
Did these councils help drive what's happening at the clinic, or is it more of a informational or planned outreach experiences type of role for the council?
We try to host these events in a larger area than actually the clinic itself, to have folks obviously be able to have the opportunity to come from the community, from the teachers, the district in general, where we would host these events, and it would be on a larger scale, right? It would be on a larger scale to have hosts' ability to provide feedback on, maybe what's working for this particular district or what's really not working for this particular district, and how can we improve services and tailor those services to the district in general.
Thank you.
Sometimes an opportunity for school administrators to come as well and talk about other programs that they are thinking about or coinciding that it may be beneficial to overlap with our RAWS services. It's an opportunity for community organizations that have a particular role in your school or in your district that we could more effectively collaborate with. So it's an open conversation. And oftentimes it's exactly questions that you're asking right now of us that we have the opportunity to explain and talk about.
I also have a question that maybe is also involves the Colt team answering is the question is about security, both security for the students that may be in the building during the school day and frankly, security of the clinic itself outside of hours. And if our security is, we have the type of security that can, secure a clinic outside of working hours where there might be things in storage.
Can you repeat that question, please? Sorry.
I'm wondering about security both for the students during the school day and also of the clinic itself outside of school hours.
Okay. So typically, obviously, the students are, so let's say we're in your high school, right? And you have students that are arriving for the clinic. They have an appointment that are from the middle school. Their parents are bringing them in, but they're from the middle school, but they're coming to the high school because that's where the clinic is stationed, within that brick and mortar location. Typically, if the clinic has an exterior door, then that exterior door becomes one of the main entrances to the clinic, where we would always be the ones that would escort those individuals into the clinic and then escort them back out of the clinic. Now, let's say there is not an exterior door, but mom and dad, or mom in general, or parent, or guardian, bring Johnny over to the clinic, who's a middle schooler, but the clinic's at the high school, they're bringing him over. Ideally, they would go to the main office. The main office would contact our clinic staff to say, we have a patient here. We would come down, get the patient, walk them into the clinic, provide the service. We walk them then back out to the main office where then they could be on their way. Never at any time do we allow our patients to be unaccompanied by, just themselves or walking throughout the buildings or throughout the clinic. They're always to be accompanied by one of our clinical staff. In other situations, the districts that have walkie-talkies or have their security teams that have walkie-talkies, they do provide us a walkie-talkie to be able to communicate directly with the security team as well.
And as to the security of the clinic itself when school is outside of school hours.
So we ideally try to operate identical to the school hours. We have a little bit of a fluctuation, maybe a half hour here and there of, whether we're before or after. We are open year round though. What that means is in the summertime, we're still able to provide services.
I guess I appreciate that. I guess what I'm kind of driving at is that the idea that there would be a clinic with medicines or whatnot in the school building and the clinic is closed.
There's never any controlled substances. There's never any narcotics or controlled substances. That's what you're referencing. There's never possessive medications in the building.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Even the minor medications that we have on, in the clinic available are kept under lock and key. The immunizations, obviously the clinic door and access itself is maintained by our staff and, very limited members of the school administration and security team, so that we can protect our assets as well.
Yeah, so if you're, just to give you an example, let's say we have a bottle of Tylenol in the clinic. We have actual secured medical cabinets that are all lockable via combination locks. So that bottle of Tylenol will be locked 24/7, but there's never any form of controlled substance or narcotic at any of our sites. We do not prescribe those.
Thank you.
So I just need a point of clarification. Darby, did I understand that we have a local advisory group specific to this district, or that we participate as a consortium in an advisory group?
Right, we have a local health advisory board currently. We have talked about potentially having that board be part of, and maybe adding to our local board to be part of the conversation, the data review, information, sharing it, to kind of run things through that board as well locally for us.
Okay, and would it require, I think I heard you say that maybe a little change in composition to make sure that we have all the stakeholders that are necessary?
Potentially, that's what the Child and Adolescent Health Center grant outlines. So we would ideally follow that.
Okay, so that's that's gives us the understanding then that we would have a more fine-grained kind of input loop or feedback loop that would be specific to our conditions here in our district.
We feel that's important for transparency and information sharing and communication, yes.
Okay.
I just didn't think I heard, I don't know if I heard your last answer, Mo, the right way. I know I clearly heard you say no controlled substances on site. I think, did you say that you would prescribe for those outside of the clinic? Or that you don't prescribe for anything outside the clinic?
So we don't keep them on site in the clinic.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to
Right.
reference in regards to
Okay.
that.
I misheard.
If Dr. Park, for example, feels that a patient that he has not allowed to speak on that, might need to be on some sort of, controlled substance per se, right? That would be his clinical decision from a prescribing standpoint, from a clinical standpoint, but obviously the parents would be involved before any form of prescribing occurs.
Okay. And then I think the exception to that is, right, if there's the taking us back full circle, if there's youth consent to whatever you treat chlamydia with, it's an antibiotic, then the youth can get prescribed that and deal with it at the CVS or wherever.
We can. We also have those medications on site in the clinic for immediate treatment.
Okay.
There are other security concerns in terms of syringes, needles, other kinds of, those devices would also be locked up. Is that right?
100%. We operate under all the state regulations and requirements of, any clinical operation of Michigan Medicine
Okay.
or other health system that you may be familiar with.
Any other questions? Anything, team? Comments?
I would just sincerely like to thank both of you coming out and answering questions in a system that was kind of difficult to hear as well. And your grace in showing us one of your clinics when we went and visited with our Colt team to see that, the professionalism that I personally witnessed there, the attention to detail, the care for the children, the opportunities for families were something that I saw with my own eyes. And 32 years of this means that you've all done something right for a bit. So thank you so much. And I'm sure Ms. Hoppenstedt, maybe you have something you'd like to say in closing. Even good night to them.
Yes, we're just very grateful for your time this evening. I know we went a little bit over, but it was helpful as mentioned, we have lots of questions and you helped to bring clarity for us. So we are very grateful for your time.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Very grateful. And I think Ms. Hoppenstedt, you had some notions around what potential next steps could be.
Sure. So
Good night. Thank you.
let me go back to my
Thank you.
documents here. So our proposed path would be 2 virtual community forums held on December 19th and 21st to allow for Q&A and presenting this information to get feedback. And then the special call meeting scheduled for January 9th. That would be a public hearing, and then that's the request
21.
for the board to take action to move forward with that letter of support to partner with Michigan Medicine. So that's our proposed path. Curious about thoughts and input on that proposed path.
Well, I mean, the board, for those who weren't there and couldn't see it because it wasn't recorded, the board heard about this last week, asked for more information, got these guys to come, and we basically said we wanted to hear community forum type access. So I know I cannot make the 21st, but I would try to be there for the 19th, and I certainly would be there for the 9th. Are you thinking that, I mean, as a board member, I would like to hear the public, right, at any opportunity. I would think that the board would not be otherwise participating other than listening.
Sure.
Is
And and our thought was to record because they'd be virtual sessions, and then post them on an accessible link to our website that, those that can't attend either of those days could review the content at least,
Thank
and
you.
then provide questions to us.
Do you have any idea the time of both of those?
The thought on the 19th was like a noon. So one during the day, and then the 21st, we were thinking like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And so we were thinking a day and an evening, and then again, that recording for those sessions would be available.
But these virtual forums, people would be able to ask questions. So it wouldn't be like our YouTube for this where people can't comment.
They would be able to engage. It would be more of like the webinar style where they would type in questions.
Okay.
But we would monitor and have a moderator for those questions to be able to answer.
Great.
So this would be 100% online versus people being able to come in person?
I guess that's up to us to decide. The initial thought was those two virtual just for access points.
I'm
but-
just going to say, a Thursday in December, the 21st is, I mean, we can say there's a 6:30 meeting and say people can come. I'm not sure that's the same as people being able to come. And I'm heartened though that there's another meeting on the 9th where could be more public comment, and certainly feel like, I mean, this is the timing that we have. I mean,
we could potentially do that Tuesday evening or Wednesday evening as an addition. I know it's still like that last week before break, but we were also looking at the events of that week, and I know that the high school has a few events. So Thursday looked like the night that did not have.
well, and yeah, I mean, maybe the other thing that, to throw out into the room, because to a comment, I mean, the point here is to actually let people participate. And if
Right.
you're going to moderate comments and take comments in writing, and you're going to record yourself answering them and then put that out, it also seems like we could collect comments up through these 2 dates, right? Or collect questions so that people could submit them. And if they can't make it on either of those times, then could we commit to answering questions up through then?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're not saying like, sorry, if you can't come on the Thursday before Christmas, then we don't want to hear from you, right?
It's really reminiscent to me of the FAQ that kept going through COVID,
Yes,
right? That
that's
was
what I
like
was
it kept
thinking.
building,
Mhm.
building, building, and people could refer back to it. It was public facing, and I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, we will continue to update that FAQ as questions come in as well. So people could, potentially submit those, and we would just keep those responses rolling.
Is that posted somewhere?
It
That
isn't yet.
FAQ? Okay.
It's been shared with all of you at this point, and then our next step would be to post the FAQ on a place on our website.
Awesome.
Considering this is such an important issue, let's post multiple ways, because we really want to get, I mean, like, we can have a couple of meetings on the 19th and 21st. I'm not so sure, being the Christmas, how much we're going to get, but we really want to make this convenient for our community to give us real feedback as best as possible, right? So let's send lots of different ways of how we communicate to the community, because I don't want to miss. Honestly, for me to decide on this one, it's really going to depend on that community feedback, and so that's why it's important.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Mazurek. I don't think right now this is on the brain, and then come January, everyone is like, wait, what? And I don't want to catch people flat-footed. So I agree with you. Any opportunity we can give to engage.
And this is a big issue, right? And I realize it's a close period of time, but I don't want to ram something through partially. So we got to communicate extra. And I know, we've got a lot of people are good at that, but this is another one of those that we ask all the time. We need to go above and beyond the call of duty with communicating.
I think the other piece of it, though, is it's really just about applying for the grant, right? That we have a lot of time to understand, like, what is involved in having a clinic like this in our building.
And forgive me if this hasn't been said before, but the reason that the timeline may seem pressed to some, is the fact that this is a grant opportunity that came to us after looking at what was out there, Ms. Hoppenstedt making connections, digging and trying to find opportunities for our community. This came up. The grant deadline is January. What we're really asking for is the ability to go forward with applying for said grant. So I think Lisa may have said that, or somebody may have said that. So thank you for mentioning that. But it just strikes me as we talk about kind of a compressed nature of that. I'm not sure if people said why it's that case. And, my philosophy in feeling in life in general is if there's an opportunity that has the potential to be really, really good, I would rather we at least examine it and speak about it and wonder about it than not. So I'm grateful for all the questions tonight. I'm grateful for the people that are here, and grateful for the fact that we have members on staff and who are sitting right across from me right there in that Colt team that really go hunting for opportunities to make kids' lives better in this district. And we're going to continue to do that. Thanks.
Could I just confirm also that anybody who wants to communicate with us their position or suggestions or concerns can do so through MPSBOE, northvilleschools.org. So please, that's another pipeline of communication too.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for your thoughtfulness, everyone.
Yeah, no, thank you. And great opportunity to explore. And I think we owe it to ourselves to really to take a look at it. So that will conclude that portion of our agenda tonight and bring us to the first of two opportunities for public comment tonight.
President Wilson, can I request a 5-minute recess?
Absolutely.
Break. We've been up
So,
3 more hours just used for.
Let's make it come back at 9:25, 9:26. Take a short break.
All right.
Like, I gotta get out of
There.
here.
Oh, yeah. So we'll bring it back to our meeting, and this will bring us to our first of two opportunities for public comment. I'm going to call it 10 or so cards up here. I'll give you the ground rules around public comment, but I would ask first, does anybody not want to go first or wants to go first or wants to go last? All right, going once. All right, one for last. Who's first? What's your last name? Gotcha. All right, so Claire Pfeiffer, gotcha. So a few ground rules for everyone. This is, like I said, our first of two opportunities for public comment. 3 minutes for each commenter, right? You have 3 minutes. We're pretty strict around that time limit, especially on nights like tonight when we have a long meeting. If you would, come on up or take the microphone. Tell us a little bit about yourself, just a brief introduction, who you are, your connection to the district. Keep in mind that this is an opportunity for you to present information, concerns, interests, issues to us, and not necessarily for us to engage in any sort of conversation or debate. That said, I will call Claire Pfeiffer. Do we have a microphone?
It's on the.
Oh, here.
Music stand.
All right.
There we go. I like to think I'm technically savvy. So my name is Claire Pfeiffer, and you all met my daughter Evie at the Winchester meeting. So thank you for coming there. That was fantastic, and she had a wonderful time presenting and showing all the things that they do over at Winchester. I'm here today to talk about the Winchester parent letter. Though mine was not one of the 90 families who signed the Winchester parent letter regarding smaller class sizes, I took interest because of the board's comments. Mr. Mazurek, I hope I pronounced that right. You mentioned the history of the district's struggles in 08 and 09 when it was a struggle to make payroll and how far we've come growing the general fund to nearly $30 million if I looked at your financial statements correctly. I would add that this is nearly twice that of the neighboring district of Novi. And then Mrs. Meyer, you pointed to the teacher shortage. And Mr. Wilson, you noted that the district is meeting the board identified standards. So the board conveyed at that moment that they would take a hard look at the request, but did not provide any guarantees. And the parents in this room and I think we can sympathize with the decisions that were made back in 08 and 09, as we are of the generation that was finishing school and looking for jobs, but often unsuccessfully. And in fact, our age group has the largest amount of debt and the lowest salaries of any generation before. So we wholeheartedly understand the decisions that you made at that time were necessary. However, I would like to say that now is not that time. Northville District ranks 3rd in Michigan behind Novi and Troy. I think we can all agree we're presented with a really unique opportunity to grow here. I'd like to just share a quick story. My 7th grade social studies teacher drove the best scores in the school system that I was in by challenging my class to complete 12th grade level assignments. He went on to become my high school's principal and later the assistant superintendent in the district next door. He took that district from number 40 to number 1 in Michigan rankings, and he's sitting next to you at this table. You hired him a year ago, and I'm sure you know he is anything but conventional. And as his student, neither am I. As a parent, I expect the best for my kids. And as a CPA with over 15 years of experience in accounting and finance and a controller of an over $1 billion company in sales, I can tell you that there is room in the financial statements to start testing the waters on classroom sizes through hiring additional teachers. Just like Dr. Weber challenged me in my 7th grade class. I would like to challenge the board to start taking some steps toward that vision of making Northville the leading school district in Michigan. As we say in business, let's walk before we run. I would like you to, consider adding K through 2 teachers, which is where studies indicate it is the most impactful for our students. Another option would be adding a few teachers per year. You have an extremely involved parent community, which I think you saw from our PTA putting on over 44 events for our community. And use us. We're here for you. We want to make this work. Create a committee to come up with recommendations for you guys to move forward with.
Ms. Pfeiffer, let me just interrupt you. You're going well over here. If you could just wrap it up.
Yep. Lower class sizes address the teacher shortage. That shortage doesn't happen in elementary school, and it addresses the middle children like you guys talked about, of which my son is one. So thank you guys very much for your consideration and would appreciate any steps that you can take towards action in this matter.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to, pardon me if I mispronounce the name, Preetha Iyengar. She left, all right. Tammy Kane, please.
That better? Okay. Hi, good evening. I think you all know me, but Tammy Kane. I have 3 children, 2 in college, and I have a 7th grader. Just a couple comments in regard to the presentation that we just saw. If I'm, so these are kind of off the cuff things for you to think about as you're discussing this. And, I know we have the community input, which is fantastic. I definitely will be attending those. But, my daughter's 13. So I look at this and I realize it's a state law, but I just have a big issue that there's the consent aspect. That's a big, big concern for me. When I think about this, my older daughter just graduated class of 2023 at Northville High School. Even when she turned 18, I asked because she would leave school and I'd have to call. She wasn't allowed to leave at 18. I still had to call her out. But yet here we're talking about a 13-year-old that can go and, do and talk to people without my knowledge. There's also the aspect of, we fill out permission slips for field trips and things of that nature. I had a comment too about the data slide that was used in the presentation by, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, but the Northville employee here, with that survey that I'm not a big fan of. That I've discussed that before, but I kind of think it's important to put it in perspective. I'm not sure about the bottom pie chart, but the two top pies, the number of students was 148. So when you look at that, in this graduating class, we had 585 students that just graduated. So only 148 11th graders took that survey. So we kind of have to put it in perspective that roughly 25% of 11th graders completed that survey. And therefore, when you're saying that in regard to the responses, the 20%, we're talking about 30 children. That's a big deal. I'm not negating that, but I'm just saying numbers wise, you need to kind of put it in perspective, because when people are looking at it, if they don't know what it's based on, they're like, oh my gosh, 20%. So that's an aspect I think that needs to be paid attention to. Another thing is that we would be using a portion of a tax funded building for this. Also, when it was made a comment here that, if it's in one building in the district, and then a parent can take a child from a different school to the clinic, it's almost the same as if going to the CVS Minute Clinic and so forth. So you've got that aspect. A question I have is, we have a district nurse. If we start implementing this, would there be a need for a district nurse? And then what happens when the grant money runs out? Who funds that and maintains it? I don't think that's going to go on forever. Maybe it does. I don't know. But these are just some top of mind questions I have that I kind of wanted to bring to your attention. And, I appreciate the opportunity to share. Thanks.
Thank you. Good questions. Thank you so much. That brings us to Melissa Heinen, please.
Hello. Hi, my name is Melissa Heinen. I'm actually a parent of Northville student, high schooler, and also I'm a pediatrician in the community. I do not work for I do not work for U of M. I work for IHA, which is a different, larger subset in the community here. A couple of things. I have a lot of experience with school-based clinics, so I say this with some passion. I think there's a great need for school-based clinic. At the same time, I do agree, I have to say, where I have a little pause. School-based clinics in underserved areas are awesome because they serve these grant-funded monies. I'm not sure about taking some of that grant-funded money. For me, as a community epidemiological school-based person, to say that, you know, Northville is one of those communities or not. So it does give me pause overall for the state of Michigan. The second thing I would say is about the consent. The comments that were made about the consent forms today, I just have to say, I do this every single day. And actually in my administrative role, this is my job to work on consents. The state laws are the state laws. And in fact, they're national laws. And you can talk about the national laws all throughout every state, and it's not just Michigan. The point is you could just say that I don't consent for my kid to be seen in the clinic, and that's it. And then they won't be seen in the clinic and they won't have any of that. You could get the same care at your pediatrician. Yes, you'd have to drive them there or they'd have to get them there themselves. But many 16-year-olds do have private conversations with us. But we as primary care obviously come back to the parent and really have poignant conversations and a relationship, which a school-based clinic is a little different because they don't have that relationship with the parent, which I think is a sticking point of the concern in a school-based clinic. And the third point I would just like to make is that the relationship with the primary care doctor is really, really important. Not just important because I am one, but important to me as a parent. I would want to know and have that relationship back to either myself or the primary care doctor. So I think that there was a lot of questions about the logistics of how this works. Is it mental health only? I think that's amazing because I can't get any of these kids I refer to into mental health clinics. If you're talking about strep throat, I don't know that we need that in Northville. Can we do that another way? Because most of us can get our kids to the doctor in a reasonable way. But the mental health, I think, is huge. So I think that's a need for Northville and every community in between. And just even as a general pediatrician for my own kids, I have trouble getting them in places for mental health and everything else. And I know all the people. So I think that's a big point. I think there's still a lot of questions. I don't think this board should work on the consent. I think it should be the consent is what it is at U of M and is what it is across the state and is what it is across the country. But you can choose not to consent or not. You can't argue about the consent form. That's just a waste of the board's time, in my opinion.
Thank you so much. That brings us to Jessica Jordan, please.
It's not. Everybody has to.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I'm trying.
Okay, so my name is Jessica Jordan. I'm a mother of 2 little girls. They go to Winchester Elementary, and I'm also a researcher for Ford. Part of my job is understanding future generations, and this comment is tied to the U of M Health Clinic. And the evidence I've seen in my job has been really clear that children, particularly young women, are experiencing epidemic levels of depression and loneliness. The quantitative data is there, the qualitative data with stories, personal stories that are really heart-wrenching are there as well. Questioning if we are moving in a direction where everything is a mental health issue is not backed up by any data that I'm aware of, and I study this for a living. The problem to solve here is really clear. We have an opportunity to shift this really disturbing mental health trend in Northville schools. We can start here. I think kids, particularly teenagers, should have a safe space to talk about their issues with a medical professional in their school versus turning to an alternative method that could be much more damaging, like self-medication, violence, or God forbid, self-harm. As a parent, of course, I want to know everything that they're up to, but I'm willing to sacrifice that type of consent. So I would be the type of parent who would say, go ahead, you don't need to tell me everything that they talk to you about because I want them to have a safe space. In favor I would rather have them talk to a trusted medical professional than participate in any of those other activities I mentioned. If they feel like they can't come to me, they should be able to go somewhere. I know I would have benefited from a program like this when I was in school, and I wouldn't be a very good mom if I wasn't up here advocating for my kids. So I'm here tonight to advocate for Northville schools to explore this opportunity. It seems like a really good opportunity to partner with, one of the best medical institutions in the country, and it would be a huge missed opportunity if we passed on this. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for your comments. That brings us to Matt Wilk, please.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. I was just negotiating homework over the phone before I picked this up. To keep the comments brief, Sarah, I wanted to thank you for raising this on a broader forum to let people know it's there. When we, in our past, did something like redistricting, we had 5 different conferences at schools and had hundreds and if not thousands of people touch on it. I think having a couple online sessions is probably a little light for this. I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, this area does not lack for healthcare opportunities. If you are standing on the corner of 7 Mile and Haggerty, you can go on the northeast corner, and that is a Beaumont facility. On the southeast corner is a Trinity facility, and on the southwest corner is U of M's facility. To the extent that you're targeting mental health, one of the questions that I would ask is the grant and this the way to do it? Because it seems like you're being overbroad. You've heard the concerns about doing things that parents don't want to consent to. The 2 gentlemen on this hemmed and hawed about whether a mature minor, which I have 2 not in my house, that's laughable concept. If you wanted to target mental health, why don't you just target mental health? Why don't you take the dollars that we have and just get an in-house clinical psychologist, or wherever you deem necessary, and target just that area? I don't think the grant or getting those small grant dollars has ever moved this district when we find a need that we want. That would be a way to target it very specifically without adding over all the other overbroad concerns, because the concept of where is the money going to come from after the grant is a real one. The consent is a big, big thing. I mean, we don't allow it in this district for a lot of things. You need your parents' consent to sign to pick your classes as a middle schooler. I mean, if you want to talk about, again, this laughable concept of the mature minor, I would ask you to hear from Brad O'Neill and Bill Jones and say how many mature minors, because that's not the ones that are going to be using this. They're going to be other ones, okay? And this is not something, the controversy that would engender is not something this district's ever sought out. I would point out politely that one of our peer districts, Grosse Pointe, had the same issue, had the same feedback from their parent group, and made the determination that this was not in their best interest, because again, we've got clinics everywhere. But Sarah, to your point, which you've made for a very long number of years, if we're going to target mental health, maybe it's the best idea to just sit down and target mental health. As a U of M longtime person, it's very, very difficult. And I was a little disappointed to hear that these people will go to the front of the line, because me, as a Michigan longtime person, to get my own kids in there, I have to then wait in line. Well, let's just cut that out. Let's make a Northville only line. Let's hire these people so they can have those services right up front. I don't think anyone would object. In fact, we've been trying to do that for years by hiring counselors that counsel, right? Or more than that, but not really concerned so much about like college stuff. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the last card that I have before me. Ms. Jenna Mabry, please. No surprises there. If you have any other comments, feel free to bring them, or comment cards, feel free to bring them out, bring them up.
Nope, try the other one.
One more hand. Thank you, Sandra Brock. Hello, my name is Jenna Mabry. I'm a public comments veteran. You have seen me before. You've met my daughter at Winchester at the Board of Education. First, I'd like to thank those who brought up the comments, questions about the grant, targeting mental health, and the school nurse. All of that is important to consider. I do want to speak as a mother. I completely understand the fear and the worry we have for the unknown in the lives of our children. It is frightening enough with what we do know what is going on. I'm confident the parents in this room have developed relationships with their children where there would be no need for the children to seek care without the parents' knowledge. I absolutely respect and admire you for creating an environment where your children know with certainty that they can come to you first, always. While I believe that I have that type of relationship with my young children, I cannot know how our relationship will change as they move into the teenage years. I am sure most of us can agree it takes a village to raise our kids. I believe the student health clinic would be adding to our village and would be a wonderful benefit for my kids. For those who are concerned about children seeking care without a parent's consent, I implore you to please leave space in your heart for the children whose parents may not have forged a strong bond with their children. We cannot truly know what goes on in the homes of anyone but our own. Even in Northville, parents threaten, parents neglect, and parents abuse. These children deserve the opportunity to seek confidential and convenient health care, both physical and mental. As the parents of our village, which we all are, it is the responsibility of all of us to care for all the kids of our district. I commend the Northville Public Schools leadership and the Board of Education for exploring this opportunity. Thank you.
So much. That's all the cards I have before me here. Any others? No. All right, public comment. Going once, going twice. There's still one opportunity. That brings us to our new hires, and I'll hand it over to Ms. Prescott, please.
Thank you for your comments, everyone. And please feel free to email us. Okay, so this is going to be a motion on a hire, and it's motion number 53. I would just move that the board award a prorated one-year NEA teacher contract to Matthew Sexton for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Mr. Mazurek, I heard. Any presentation or discussion on our candidate? Mr. Maydew?
Are we gonna vote on this one? The first one, mine says caveat.
Did I read it wrong?
You just read
There are
it.
two.
I went to 11. So we're on Mr. Sexton, and we're going to call that. Megan, can you make a note to switch those in the minutes? Sorry, I did that. Apologize.
Right along with you. I just...
No problem.
It's a good thing we have the rest of them then, I guess.
No, number 10 is tucked under number 9.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. I was like, why is the controller not below here? Okay, so sorry about that, Mr. Maydew, and I threw you a curveball, but it's Mr. Sexton. I moved on.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, this was there was a hire. This was at Northville High School. There was unexpected resignation, and so we posted a position. We interviewed several folks. Mr. Matthew Sexton rose to the occasion. He was known in the building. He's worked. He's a coach with our football team on the defensive side. But he's been a teacher at Plymouth Canton for the last 7 years. It was very obvious how much he deeply cares for students, and how well he makes connections with students. When I checked his references, I was assured or told constantly how good of a social studies teacher he is at Plymouth Canton, and that also makes him a good coach. There's this theory some people have that, in theory at least, that a good coach, because of the relationships they are able to make, can make those same relationships in the classroom, and he seems to be able to do both of those things. This job is a little bit different. It's our online learning program teacher, so he's going to be helping our students that are taking online courses, checking on them, making sure, mentoring them, making sure that they are staying up on the work that they're supposed to be doing. So we're very happy to make this recommendation for this hire to the board.
Mr. Maydoun, could you just comment on how many students approximately a semester might be taking an online course? It's okay if you don't like the
I believe you
exact.
said it's about 600. Yeah, 600.
So he's in charge of monitoring 600 students and making sure that they keep on.
There's other mentors. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That would be kind of be one teacher for like a whole elementary, right?
I had the same. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
very, so many of our students want to take this, this opportunity. So glad to hear there's other teachers, and I guess I'm so glad that he came so highly recommended. I'm going to vote yes. I have no qualms. I'm thrilled. I just wanted to kind of, put a thumb on the scale for, great support for him. I'm sure you would give it either way, because taking on the oversight of 600 students a semester is going to require extraordinary organization. And I know I was receiving like the parent updates and, for a student who was enrolled in one of those courses. So lots and lots to do here. And so, yeah, just make sure to give them all our warm support from the board, please.
Well, a couple of things that the person who was leaving a position, the district she's going to and I has spoken. They're going to allow that person to come back to help train them.
Oh, great.
So that's one thing we did. And then there's also another teacher in the building that at one other time had the same position. So he's going to be given those extra supports to help him at the beginning to get set up in new systems.
I'm so glad you said that.
So if you recall, Jacob Pollard was our online mentor
That's
before we
right, yep.
moved him to social studies when Ms. Vespremi was hired. So Jacob is still in the building. He teaches full-time social studies now. So there are plenty of others. And there are at least 3 other mentors who have one section where his job is all this. Other teachers may have 5 sections of their class and 1 section of online kids that they monitor. So
Great. Well, thank you for that extra information.
Comments or questions before we vote on this great hire? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Sexton. Welcome aboard. All right, that brings us to our next one. I'm not sure to call it number 10 on our agenda. How about motion number 52?
This will be 53 as we count it, right? So it's our 53rd, and I would move that the board award a prorated 1-year probationary non-affiliated contract to Kathy Herger for assistant controller for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Support.
All right, so I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Mr. Mazurek. Thank you. Mr. Maydoun.
Yes. So the business office recently lost someone that was moving to the other side of the state. So whenever we have these opportunities, we kind of start looking at staff, what our staffing needs are, has anything changed, things of that nature. So as we were talking about it, there seems to be a lot of, well, the magic word here today is grants. And there's a lot more grants that the business office is looking at. So they were looking for someone that was able to help process some of those grants and do some other things. And we also have this idea of we talk about succession plans. We also talk about making a job more desirable, so somebody can say, hey, if I have this job, then they can see a pathway to continue on. So we came up with this concept of using this opportunity to take that opening that we had and create the assistant controller position. Fortunately for us, when we posted this job, we had several applicants, but we had someone that was already working within the district, and that would be Miss Kathy Herger. She has over 15 years of experience in finance with Ford Motor Company. I think it is a company that Mike is very familiar with.
We've heard of it.
And she also holds an MBA from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And if anyone talks to her, and as we interviewed her, her love for finance and the finance world just pours out of every pore of her being in her body. So that, coupled with the fact that she had worked for us for several years and she's an exemplary employee, we are honored to make this recommendation to the board to hire her for this position.
Excellent.
I knew her back at Ridgewood, right? She was in the front office. She's just phenomenal. And there was always, behind her, everybody's like, do you know she has an MBA? She could do so much more in the district. So it was exciting when she moved up to the data group. And now I'm excited for you, Mike.
all I can say is we've had some good experience with past Ford finance people. So I don't know, it's kind of a good recommendation to me.
That's right. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome, Ms. Herger. That brings us to number 12 on our agenda. Mr. Mazurik, I'll hand it over to you.
Let's see. Okay, I've done the wrong one. Okay, I bring motion number 54, that a board adopt a Young Fives program as part of the Northville Public Schools offering for the 24-25 school year as presented.
Support.
All right, so I have a motion properly presented by Mr. Mazurik and supported by Dr. Campbell-Whitell. Presentation on this, Dr. Brock, it looks like.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. Sandra Brock from the Office of Instruction here with Devin Caudale. And we are so excited to officially bring you Junior Stangs. There's been a lot of information out there. And we're just really excited. And we want to thank the committee, which you will see has representation from many departments, many buildings. I would like to thank HR, Ms. Peck, Ms. Rourke, Ms. Picken, who have all, this has truly been a collaboration of many departments in from all of our buildings. So we're excited about the opportunity. So you have an FAQ in front of you. Devin and I tried to highlight some of those really key questions that we were getting from parents in the community about Kinderstangs. We also have a Kinderstangs email address where we have not had a lot of emails, but the ones that we've had have basically been to the effect of, we are so excited to have this program, or I wish we had this program 10 years ago. So a lot of positive feedback. So goals for the actual Kinderstangs committee was understanding the need. This was something where a Young Fives program, there's been a lot of talk of it, I would say, in the Norfolk community recently, and families are certainly interested. So when we began meeting with the committee, it was really important for them to understand the intention. We were going to really take a serious look at bringing this program to Northville because of the feedback from stakeholders. Again, I talked about the collaboration between departments, people from every single elementary building on the committee. And then we also were able to look at some recently added programs in neighboring districts, namely Walled Lake and South Lyon. So they had recently gone through the process, had wonderful videos, FAQs, resources, were more than willing to talk with us, which was awesome that we were able to just contact them and ask any questions that we might have. We also thought it was really important to get clear information out to the community, a very sound framework and guidance documents, some of which have already been released. So before you see the names of the Kinderstangs Young Five committees. Again, representation from all buildings, all different grade levels, including humanities. It's really important to state we had some subcommittees that were also at work. So subcommittees would be student data, transportation, food services, all of the questions that really go into the logistical pieces of planning a Young Fives program. The why behind Kinderstangs. So number one, we knew this was best for kids and best for our families. We, unfortunately have lost some students. If they go to other Young Five programs, they might start in that pipeline and then never come back. So we thought, what a great way to, have a Mustang at age 4, 4.5, or 5. Really just starting with the foot right in the door of our classrooms. Social emotional learning. So some kids just need the gift of time. They are maybe not ready for that full piece of a kindergarten classroom. So we would just want to give them time to adjust. And speaking of adjustment, a full day can be really hard. So building in some of those extra support pieces for the Young Fives classrooms and students. A big piece of this graph, you see in front of you the 23-24 kindergarten enrollment. If you go to the right-hand side, you see that we have 33 kids that are on waivers right now in our classrooms, in our kindergarten classrooms. If we couple that with the projected date of birth that we are projecting for the Young Fives program of July 1, that would be I'm sorry, I know it's like 10 o'clock at night, 74, am I adding that correctly? So we would have roughly 74 kids this year's kindergarten had we offered this starting last year. So that would be at least 3 to 4 sections.
And I think that's kids that would be eligible for the program, not exactly that we know would take advantage of the program. Because we could have 2 kids, both with an August 19th birthday, one be completely ready for kindergarten and one that would be a really good benefit for that Young Fives program.
Next slide, please. So next steps for us, we're going to continue marketing to families and then have a parent night on January 16th, really just talking about the program, asking any questions that parents might have, having parents meet with some of our kindergarten teachers so they can see how wonderful our staff are. Another piece is over 65 families have completed the interest form. I say 65 plus because some mom and dads were so excited they both completed the form, so we do have some duplicate entries. But it's early, and we are already nearing on 70 families, so we think we will only grow from there.
So, and beside from the parent information night, which will be myself, Dr. Brock, Molly Garcia from the Office of Special Services, and kindergarten teachers, we're also going to do a presentation, a parent camp surrounding this as well.
So questions or comments? We would like to thank Mr. Boffman for creating the actual logo.
And I know thank you, AI. And I know there are also some questions about location and where the Young Fives program is going to be held. So there are 3 possible locations for elementary buildings. So that would be Silver Springs, Winchester, and Ridgewood are the 3 elementary buildings that have the, for lack of a better term, real estate to be able to hold those additional classrooms. And then the other question runs around transportation. Is there transportation? Yes. Exactly what that'll look like, all that. Those are some of those details that we'll have to figure out once we know those numbers, where sections are going to be located and all that sort of thing.
Only comment is good job. And it's 10 o'clock at night. Thank you.
And if I may,
Thank you.
Tanya Pitkin is here in the back of the room. She just gave me the evil eye. Tanya, I've watched you be a huge part of making and getting this to happen. And I know you're one of those 5-tool players that helps a ton of people. And I just want to look at you and say thank you very much for that. And obviously, Devin and Dr. Brockstar, new nickname. This is fantastic. And really grateful for the team who got after it to provide opportunities for our families. Thank you.
Thank you. We're excited.
Thank you. We're super excited. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Young Fives it is. Let's move to number 13 on our agenda. Yep, Ms. McIntyre.
Okay. Let's see, I'd like to bring for motion 55 that the board authorize the administration to purchase a utility vehicle from Garno Ford as part of the My Deal Consortium totaling $58,734 funded through the general fund as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Ms. Stewart. I know you guys talked about this probably in Finance Committee, but anything to add?
I mean, this replaces a 2014 truck that's still there but kind of running, so we're going to move it to some lesser duties as a backup and getting a new one. This is purchased at the My Deal Consortium, so it is a statewide price. The $58,000 includes everything, so it includes the plow, it includes all of it. It's not a truck and then have to add stuff later. So, and it comes in with a warranty.
All right, excellent. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. That brings us to number 14 on our agenda, Superintendent 2022-23 Evaluation Report. And let me see, I'm presenting motion 56, the superintendent's evaluation for the 2022-2023 school year be approved as presented.
Support.
All right, so I have a motion properly presented by myself, Mr. Wilson, supported by Ms. Prescott. Any discussion on this? I'll say that I saw the evaluation in our board materials. It looked good to me. It seemed to me to reflect what we talked about last week. Any other comments?
No, I'll just say, for people who aren't involved, I mean, to have a 7-on-1 evaluation is quite the situation to have. It was a great conversation, great feedback, and we appreciate all the data that RJ provided to us so that we could, make an assessment and give him some candid feedback. And, who else has ever had to go through a an assessment where 7 people are grilling you at one time. It's not easy, and so we thank you.
I'd say
Welcome.
not only just the process in general, 7 people is enough, but 7 like us, I think that's taking it to another level. I also want to say thank you for all the materials, Dr. Weber, that you put together. They were really helpful. Thank you to the team for working through. We talked about highs and offered feedback on opportunities for growth and to continue pressing. And so I thought it was a really great conversation or set of conversations, and I was pretty excited about it. I think it reflects a great rating, really great rating. Any other comments? Anything? Great job. All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Anything else that we need to do formally on this?
One more.
No, I know
He
that. I'm
means
talking
on the-
about in the
he means on-
evaluation report. You have it. And there's nothing else okay. So that brings us to number 15 on our agenda. I bring motion number 57 that the board approve the superintendent's contract extension effective July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2027 on the terms and conditions as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by myself, Mr. Wilson, and supported by Ms. McIntyre. A little discussion. I think the red line contract was in our packet as well. Thank you to the team for putting that together, Megan and Rebecca, and whoever else was involved. I forget off the top of my head, I think that would essentially take the contract from mid-2024, this coming June, through 2027. The red lines were presented, and we sign that in the spring.
And this is a standard practice.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we do with Mary Kay, it's a standard practice for a 3-year contract at the end of each year. After successful, we extend it. So for the public, this is really the same thing we do every year.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, contract is done. Thank you. Added agenda items, number 16. Any? Ms. Irving? Anybody else? That brings us to our second of 2 opportunities for public comment tonight. Going once, going twice. Will be closed. Number 18 on our agenda, questions, comments from board members.
It's 10 o'clock at
enough.
night.
Yep.
I know. I think we had a lot of questions
Yeah.
earlier, so we can just hold those inside for a little bit.
I'd like
for
to
it.
just acknowledge the people in the audience that have stuck with us through this, just to have the opportunity to make a comment, to be present, to witness our efforts to provide a microphone and deep attention to the comments that were raised tonight, and also to hear what other opportunities for public comment on all of the issues, but in particular the school-based health center going forward. And then we'll hold you accountable for carrying out into the community, for those who weren't here tonight, the multiple ways that people can have input into this decision. So thank you for that.
All right. That brings us to number 19, closed session. Ms. Prescott, please.
It's motion 58, or move that the board convene in closed session pursuant to Public Act 267, MCL 15268E, to discuss pending litigation in the matter of Keebler versus Northville Public Schools et al.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Ms. McIntyre, I heard. This will require a roll call vote, and I'll hand it over to Dr. Campbell Boytow.
All right. Stewart?
Yes.
I'm dropping all first names.
That's fine.
Wilson?
Yes.
Prescott?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Missouric?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Campbell Vitale, yes.
All right, so we will move to closed session at 10:13. For those here tonight, we will be formally coming back to adjourn, but I can almost assure you with near 100% certainty that there will be no substantive discussion before that adjournment and after we get back, but feel free to stay. Thank you so much.
Multi-purpose room, I think.